Chartoom. How are we doing today? It's good to see you all here. Hello, Kika. Kika has entered the building. Hi, babe. Sorry, yeah, I didn't have a keyboard, so I figured you would take the hype. Yeah, I saw that he's gonna be in an A24 film. Also, you guys can look at my face if you want to, I suppose. Hi, guys. I'm so excited to see Brendan Fraser in another movie. I love him. I always have. I think that it's wonderful that he's becoming the internet's sweetheart. It's an Aronofsky film though, so we'll see. It's A24. The guy who directed, I've never seen Mother. Wait, is that the one with the two little girls? You quit it, Reaver. Hi guys. It's really good to see you guys. Look at the new vape that Josiah got. He got me a Views. It's the one where J-Law is hosting a party. Okay, yeah, I've definitely never seen it. Hi, Dre. I don't mind if I do. It is fucking hot. But she's also an allegory for Mother Nature. Okay, I kind of want to see it. I kind of want to see that. I'm not gonna lie, that sounds kind of awesome. I think that... No, I'm not gonna talk about that. Never mind. Thanks for looking out for me, Bogworthy. I appreciate you. It's the most fucking pretentious thing I've ever seen. It's Omega. I'm 14 and this is deep. I still kind of want to see it. I'll probably watch it without you the next time we have a solo night. Okay. So I have not made a whole lot of progress on this since I saw you last. Ooh, it looks like we're maybe a little bright on our crochet cam. Let me turn that down. And we can stop the music here too. Excuse me, golly. That's much better. It was so bright and oversaturated. Do you guys like my garage floor, my epoxy garage floor nails? I'm in love with them. You can't really see them very well. Come on. It's too bright. I like them. I think that they look fucking incredible. You like the purple? I also put static over this purple one. And it actually looks so fucking sick. It's starting to chip already. We went to the beach. We went to the ocean. And it kind of fucked up my nails a little bit. They're like all jaggy on the surface now. Nice. Okay. Are we ready for scary robot voice and chillin' crochet? They're very speckly, yes. I love them. They remind me of a beautiful garage floor. I just love them. Or like TV static, maybe. I don't know. I'm into them. You're never ready? No. Also, hi, Dragon Rana. I just called you Drana. Like scary robots or just their voices? If you like the TikTok robot, you will like this. And tomorrow, chat room, I have a very, very special stream planned. We might not crochet at all for it, though, just so you know. But I have a very special one planned. And I'm excited about it. Okay. Can I just get 3 readies in chat and we will get this show on the road? Ooh, 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 ooh. Ron, I'm going to take that EA as a ready. Well, we have 3 readies anyway.
Creepypastas are
like
great,
and Viker, cheating the system. I'm here for it.
Creepypastas are great, but what's a horror story you have experienced? One night at around 11 p.m. I was watching TV when my doorbell rang. I
Gonna have
opened
to
the
get
door, and there
fucking
was this
sorted
girl that
here.
looked around mid-late 20s that looked distressed, saying she had an argument with her mum, and asked if I could call her a taxi, where she
Ugh.
would wait for it at
My
the top
cat's
of
got
the
a
road.
hold of this, and
I
now it's
closed the
all
door
kinds of
and
fucked
called
up.
the taxi and waited around to see what would happen. Minutes later, I get a text from the taxi company saying they couldn't find anyone. I feel sorry for the driver, and I hear the girl doing the exact same thing to my neighbor. Then that was it. Never saw or heard from her again. She only did it to one neighbor, not the other 6 houses on my street. To this day, I have no reason what happened or what she was doing. This didn't actually happen directly to me, but a friend
Alright,
of
here we
mine.
go.
But I was still involved in the situation, and it's a decent story, so hey, whatever. To set the scene, my friend and I were 15 or
What is
16 at
happening
the time
here?
this happened. It was a summer night, probably around midnight. We were chatting on AIM or something, early 2000s lol, and he said he was gonna walk over to my place and hang out.
There we go.
He lived on the same street as me, a few houses down. The area we lived was kind of rural, so that was still a 15-minute walk down and around a bend in the road. There were no sidewalks or streetlights or anything. Just woods on either side of the street, but it was a walk we both made all the time at all hours of the day and night. So he says he's on his way.
Seems like we
and
maybe
after a while,
don't need
I'm starting to
captions
get a
for
little
this
worried
now that
about
I
him,
think about
because a
it.
good 30 minutes goes by and he still isn't there. I call him a couple times, and he doesn't answer. I'm thinking, what the hell, man, when he finally pounds on my door and comes in all sweaty and out of breath and tells me what took him so long. He had walked about halfway when a van coming up the road the opposite direction slowed down as it passed him,
Interesting,
and then pulled into
J-Rod.
a driveway and started turning around. He got freaked out and veered off into the woods
Fucking
and ducked behind some bushes
the
or a tree or
internet
something
and
hid there.
groomers.
Well, the van driver proceeded to go back and forth up and down the street, shining some kind of spotlight into the woods looking for my friend. They eventually gave up.
I didn't
and
know
drove
that
off,
either.
and my buddy sprinted the
I bet
rest of the way
Josiah
to my
knows
house
a
and
bit about
stayed
that
the
because
night.
he like
We
kind
never
of pays
reported it to
attention
anybody, and
to
as far as I know, no one else saw
the Smash
or
scene.
experienced anything similar in the area, but we were
Or
both
he
pretty
used to
freaked
anyway.
out walking around there late at night for a while. I was visiting my sister, who lived in a pretty decent part of Las Vegas at the time. She asked me if I could take out the trash while she was trying to do something else. So I was going out alone. The dumpsters weren't far from the entrance of the building, but they were in a slightly darker part of the parking lot. I lived in a super sketchy section of Philadelphia for years for school, so I'd like to think my gut is pretty good at detecting danger. It was screaming that night. I got about 10 from the dumpsters, Kobe'd that shit, and ran.
I can't trust my
told
gut
my
at
sister
all
something was
because
wrong
I
out
just
there.
have panic
Didn't know what,
attacks.
but something. After my sister got home from work the next day, she
Oh,
asked
I'm
me
hanging
what
in
I
there
saw the
like, and
night
how are
before.
you?
I told her I didn't see anything. Just felt absolute danger. She said building management sent out a text blast asking if anyone saw anything suspicious because a woman was raped in the parking lot of the complex down the street when she was taking out trash. Apparently, the couple guys
My
saw a
God
dude
always says
smoking near
maybe
the
we should-
dumpsters in the parking
Yo,
of a
mine
different
too.
complex further up the street. So the cops were trying to figure out if the rapist
I have
was
butt
at my
problems
sister's complex
and
got
gut
scared,
problems.
if everything might be connected. So I had to go talk to the cops about how I threw the trash and ran because something screamed danger. They'd quit forensics they had. But they did actually connect the 3 scenes. And they actually eventually caught the guy like 2 years later. Turns out dude attacked multiple women over the years by hiding at the dumpsters
Sparta.
at night. So it how close I was to being a victim that night. But I'm just very glad I listened to my gut. Me and my friend were once on the street skateboarding, and a tall like almost 7 feet man walked up to us all in black and carrying a suitcase. He walked up to us and just stopped walking until we started skateboarding again. He carried on walking and stopped when we would. We were only 13 at the time, and it was really creepy. He then just stood at the end of the street staring at us. We ran inside and he was gone. Both of us swear by this exact story almost
It's hot as
6
fuck
years
here
later.
too.
I don't know if this is considered a horror story, but I lived with some family for a year. I've been looking for a place to live, and they wanted me to
It's
rent a
alive.
house with them, and I got the bedroom in the basement. Almost the whole time I would hear like somebody crying in the laundry room next to my room, and I thought it was the TV in the bedroom above me that was always on. Well, I asked them if they could please turn that TV when they aren't there, because it sounds like a muffled crying sound. So like another week passes and I said, can you please turn that TV on, if it keeps sounding like somebody's crying downstairs and it's just creeping me out. They looked me right in the eye and said I have had the TV off. In fact, I haven't been home for 2 days with the TV off. I was 17 and was hanging out with my friend at her place watching movies. It was dark when I headed home. A couple of houses down there was a party going on, and as I walked out to my car, some guys were outside in and around their truck with the lights on and music
Nice,
playing,
J-Rod.
and they called out and catcalled me. I ignored them and started heading home. They pulled out behind me, and I hoped they were going somewhere else, but as I continued towards home they stayed behind me. I was living with my parents. around a half-hour drive away from town out in the country. As I pulled onto the
Welcome,
country roads,
Moss.
the truck was still behind, and I was really scared. I knew the roads well and put my foot down.
Oh, thank you so much for the biddies, Your
I
Highness.
reached my driveway, which was quite long, up a hill and round a corner, and floored it home. I ran inside and told my dad, who stood outside waiting to see if they'd come up the driveway. It was a still night and we couldn't see the road from our house, but we could hear the truck engine idling. They eventually drove away. Thinking about it now, there are all sorts of things I should have done differently, but I guess I was too scared to think straight. 2 nights ago I had an encounter that really unnerved me, even though nothing really happened. I was out late at night smoking some weed. To get home I cut across this field. The field has this large mound sort of hill.
I'm having a really hard time
Walking
paying
home,
attention
I
to
noticed
this.
a man's silhouette at the top of the hill. When I got closer, he turned on what appeared to be a headlamp. He stood facing me and started shaking some small bag, intermittently making a rattling sound. I was confused and made a wide berth around the hill. When I circled around to the opposite side, he was still facing me and had moved closer to my side of the hill and still shaking the bag. I took my phone out and was ready to dial 911.
Yeah, I'm doing
immediately as he
okay.
took another step closer.
911.
I saw a couple
it
with a
said.
big dog in the distance and made a beeline to them. I'm not normally afraid of people, but that guy was just so weird it threw me off. 2 stories, one more on the supernatural kind of side and the other is serious and may not be for sensitive readers. The shadow man who comes when I used to have sleep paralysis. I had it several times.
I'm so sick of people pretending that that's a paranormal thing when it's like
playing,
such a
which I thought
common
that one was my
thing.
dog, which died, and his friend. Although I couldn't move, I wasn't scared of the dogs. Their energy was friendly. About then, at some point when I had the sleep paralysis, out of the corner of my eye, I'd catch a glimpse of the shadow man. He was always just out of sight enough for me not to see him completely, but I knew he was there. One time he came close and put his hand on my shoulder, and when I regained movement and woke up properly from the sleep paralysis, I could still feel where his hand was put on my shoulder. However, I never got a bad vibe from him. There was another time I was having one of those false awakening dreams, and I actually managed to catch him. I remember I was so frustrated, and when I did catch him, I shook him by the front of his black
I don't
outfit,
believe
asking
this.
him what he wanted from me. He just laughed, and though I couldn't exactly see his face, I felt
This
it,
is just a
and he
person
said
who
nothing.
wants
He
very
didn't want
badly
to
to
hurt me or
believe in
anything like that.
ghosts.
And he didn't visit after that, and the dream stopped. There was one time I was walking late home after having an argument with my ex. We lived together, and I was attacked by 3 men, one of which had a long rusty-looking machete. They got my phone,
Sure.
money, and MP3
Yeah,
player.
one moment.
And they also started groping me and started dragging me to a bushed area across the road. There were no cars on the road, and honestly, I was stupid for thinking it'd just walk it. I thought that it'd probably end up like
Hello?
one girl who was found dead not far
Okay.
from there, and the only thing I was thinking about was that rusty machete.
Is that
I
better?
started talking in order to
Let me
see
know if it's too
I can
much.
appeal to them, like I was pregnant and that I was sick, and they'd get sick too if they did anything with me. And we got to those
It's a
bushes,
little bit too
and they did
much.
the unspeakable. And I kept talking and crying till one of them seemed to get worried by what I was saying and got his 2 accomplices to let me go. They even gave me back my SIM card and told me to go on my way, and that after this particular spot, no one else would attack me. I walked back to the road and ran to the closest
Look
apartment
up the original
complex, knocked
Little
over and
Mermaid
over
story,
till a
super
security
dark and
guard
fucked
opened
up.
and I
Link
explained
me,
the situation
tweet
and
me
asked
a
to use the
link.
phone. I called my then boyfriend to pick me and that I was robbed. I didn't tell him anything else that happened and asked him to grab a cab, and I was specific about that.
Hi, careless
He said
Binky.
fine. After about an hour I called him again because it shouldn't have taken him that long to get to me. He said he grabbed a friend and walked, and they were chased by 3 guys, one of which had a
Chazed.
machete. I nearly lost my mind because how stupid could he be? I told him to grab a cab.
The old
and pick me up,
chazzle
and he never
dazzle.
came. I chilled with the security guards till about 5:30 a.m. who asked me to wait for their security vehicle with the next shift to come and that they'd take me home. It's funny how the only thing I was thinking
Done
about was that
twirted,
those
hell yeah,
guys even
thank
stole
you.
my last cigarette cause I could have really used one. When I got home I found the ex passed out as we were drinking previously. I got my spare phone, made some calls, went to the police station to report the incident and then the hospital for tests and needed medication and counseling. It took me a long time to really process the situation. And I think I only relaxed after some time when follow-up tests gave me a clean bill of health. My ex never went with me or talked to me about that night. And though it was like 8 to 9 years ago, I still get startled when someone comes up behind me suddenly,
Chaz.
especially on my right side, because that's where I turned right before I was attacked. Me and my brother saw a hairy gorilla-type creature outside our house when we were young. But
I
it was night
definitely
and the thing was
love
walking
shit
and
like
swaying like a
this.
gorilla might do when walking on 2 legs. But it was more hairy like an orangutan. We were living in a small town in Oklahoma. We were around 6 years old. We
Big
ran into
Baboose
the
is
house
making me
and told our
popcorn and I'm
parents,
very
but they
excited.
didn't believe us. Not me, but my dad. He grew up in small town Kansas in the 70s. One day when he was 5 or 6-ish, he saw a man's face in his window in the middle of the night. The next morning he told his mom and dad, and they said no, you aren't a little girl. Those things only happen to girls. This happened every week for months, and my dad was convinced he was seeing a ghost. He even made faces at the guy, but made them back. He at one point tried to get my dad to open the window, but dad wouldn't. This went on until it snowed, and my grandpa went to the backyard, only to find footprints in the snow leading up to dad's window.
Yeah, it's time
I don't know
to
what
pull
happened
yourself
after that,
up by the
but
gill
nighttime
straps if
visits
you find
stopped.
yourself underwater,
Out hiking
hey?
in the Atlas Mountains near my family's farm. Some guy jumped out in front of me with 2 huge machetes. I had the dogs with me, so just kept walking and staring at me.
Some of
This
these
was
are
back in
not
2008.
paranormal.
Some women a few years ago were killed in the same mountains by 4 men who used knives to stab them. Last year, I went
Hi,
through a
Danny.
whole
I'm
bunch of health
making
trouble, mostly related to a tumor and a destructive relationship
long
with alcohol.
hooded
I
cape
was throwing up pretty constantly
from
and
Maggie's
not able to keep any
Crochet.
food down.
I
Ended
have
up
a
with
bot
B1
in the
deficiency.
Twitch
Turns
chat
out, B1 isn't pretty much fucking
for a
everything
link to
you
the
need, and it's
pattern,
there for a reason.
but I don't.
My legs stopped
YouTube
working.
bots, I
My
don't know
fingers and
anything about.
hands
I
were
don't even know if they
completely numb.
exist. Hi,
My
Fred.
nerves
It's
were
going.
basically
How are
screaming.
you?
Worst part was the mental degradation.
Oh,
I
you
had no idea
redeemed
what was
Hydrate.
real.
Thank you for
But
looking out for
nightmares
me.
that followed me into the waking world.
Give me one
Thought
moment
everyone,
here.
including my own mother, was out to get me. I still remember waking up thinking I just watched my little brother die in my arms, and even seeing him alive and well did nothing to convince me. Scariest thing about it is that if it had gone untreated for much longer, it could have been permanent.
Yum.
So yeah, take your fucking vitamins. Last year I was walking around my neighborhood at around 11 p.m. and a car kept slowly
Why is
following
only
me
like
up my street for
40%
about
of
10
these
minutes. It just kept
paranormal
driving
when
by
it's
me and
supposed to be a
U-turning.
paranormal
As soon as I had
compilation?
911 dialed and was ready to call.
Bat docs
The cop car
confirmed.
pulled up.
No,
I went
mine
up
is
to it
orange.
and
This
told
one
her
is
that
for
I was being
Josiah's
followed and
mom.
pointed to the car.
Bots
She
really
pulled him
are a
over
part
and
of the
I got the fuck
Mandela
out of there.
effect.
Was either dumb
Are they?
teenagers or some real sinister shit. I was ready to fight whoever stepped out of the car. And I'm not even necessarily.
But yeah,
into
if you just
Being
Google
6'2"
Maggie's
and
Crochet
175
long hooded
pounds,
cape,
I wonder if
that's
someone
what
else
I'm
had called the
making.
cops because they noticed
The
suspicious car.
images of
Or if I just got
like
extremely lucky.
a
It
blonde
was
white
late at
haired
night, so I might
lady
have seriously
wearing
just
a
been lucky.
white
That was
one.
the first time I've
That's
ever
the
been
one I'm
happy to see a
making.
cop in my life. Serious, have you ever had what
Thank you so
believe
much
to
for
be
the
a
biddies,
paranormal
Reaper. I
experience?
appreciate you.
Once when I was 11 I was alone in my grandparents' house. I think it was around 7 or 8 p.m. when it happened. A quick explanation. My grandparents' house is a 2-story one, with their room being right above the living room. The second
Sticking
floor is made of
YouTuber
wood,
heads
which
on
makes
flies
a very
for a
distinct
flump
noise whenever
thumbnail.
anyone
That's
is waking
fun.
on it, and the stairs plopping you right into the living room next to the couch that is in front of the TV. Also where they live is
You'll
very
check it out.
noisy,
It's
and there's
very
buses
beautiful.
going up
I
the
made
street
one
every
for
hour. Keep
myself.
these details.
If
They're
you're
important, so I was watching TV
able
when I
to look
heard
at
what
my
sounded
Twitter,
like a light thud on the second
there's
floor.
a
But since
in my
there was nothing
media.
else, I thought it was either
If
my
you go back
imagination or
for
the
a
noise
while,
came from one of the
there's
neighbors. A few
a
minutes later I heard it again. Much louder now.
a series
there
of
was
pictures
actually
of me
someone walking
modeling
up there.
mine.
I knew it couldn't be a
that I
burglar
made for
because
myself.
the
I
only
love it
window on the
so
second
much.
floor that anyone could use to enter the house had bars, and it was already closed, and lockhead sound kept going, as if the person was walking on circles, so I went upstairs to check. Using
I
a
feel
cushion
like this
as a shield
video is
just in
so
case.
lame. Do
I
you
was
guys want
11,
to?
shut
Should
up.
we do something
Turned on the
else?
lights. Checked the room. Nothing. I checked the whole
I would have to
second floor
bust
just
out
to be
the
safe,
keyboard to
but found
change
nothing
the,
odd or out of place. So I went back downstairs to the chair
change
around 1 or 2 hours
the
later.
title and stuff.
It came
And
back
no,
again.
not new
This
hair. I
time
just
so
am
loud
wearing
was
it
real.
down
It felt
today.
like it was in my ears and upstairs at the same time.
'Cause it's not
no
done
matter the
drying
noises
from a
from the
shower I
street or the
took
TV,
earlier.
I could hear perfectly, and now I was truly scared.
But
These
it
steps
probably
also
is by
got out
now,
of the
but
bedroom.
I'm not
I
going to
heard them
reach
perfectly
into my hair
getting
right
out
now.
of the bedroom. No noise from the door though. Pause at the corridor and come
Thank
down the
you,
stairs. I sat there
Moth.
frozen in
Thank
fear,
you
hugging
very
the cushion
much.
while the steps came down. When the person came
See you
to
later,
the
like
part
and
of the
biker.
stairs
Have a
where
good
the well
night.
ended and you could actually see who was coming, the steps stopped. I rushed to turn the stairs light up and thank God I saw nothing. But after a while I swear I heard the steps going back upstairs.
Y'all,
of
if you
house
could
when the
vote
adults got back
yay
home, and I
for
told my mom, she said it
staying
was
on
just
the
my
Reddit
imagination.
scary
But it
stories
was
or
not.
vote nay
Also,
to
no,
find
I wasn't
something
watching a horror
else.
movie or anything.
I'm
I
feeling
was
like
the
this
very
is
definition of a
super
crybaby and a
lame.
scared cat as a kid.
Ooh,
Anything horror
Vesper,
was
thank
a
you so
big-ass note
much.
in
How
my
are
book.
you?
Oddly enough, I liked watching the grim
Good to
adventures
see you.
of Billy and Mandy. I was zapping between Disney Channel and Discovery
Thank
Kids
you.
also. To finish the story, About 2 years after that, I went to my bedroom to grab
Leave.
something and saw a tall
Change
man
the video
shadow-like
for
figure
sure.
with 2 white dots for eyes
All
and a
right, yeah,
silhouette
we
that
can
looked like
do
an
that. This
overcoat.
has been
I
so
haven't
lame
seen,
though,
heard, and
hey?
experienced anything
It's
like
been
those moments
bad.
in that
It's been
house ever
pretty
since.
rough. I'll find something really quick in our subscriptions. There's a bunch of new dreading, and we haven't done dreading for a hot minute. And we just recently got, y'all should subscribe to TL Yarn Crafts, by the way. She's one of my favorite crochet creators. We just got permission from Matt Orchard to watch his stuff. We haven't done Fascinating Horror for a long time, or that chapter. Y'all want dreading? All right. Joel Guy Jr., let's go.
There is nothing more daunting.
Could I please, could one of my mods, J-Rod, change the title to just Creepy Crochet True Crime, and then change the feature to this link that I will post in chat right now. And if y'all don't mind watching this video along with me, you can do it muted, whatever. Just give them the view, you know? They deserve it. All right, can I get 3 readies in chat? Bardic predicted the future. Hell yeah.
In this
Turn the
world
captions
as becoming
back
a
on.
parent. For the majority of your life, your only goal is to take care of yourself and stay alive. From the day you were born, you learn how to keep yourself out of harm's way in a world that is filled with dangers. You discover
This
that every
popcorn
couple of
is
hours
so good.
you need to eat, that certain foods can cause a negative reaction in you, and that you need to brush your teeth every day in order
Going
to keep them
to eat
healthy.
it.
You also discover that
I just
corners
know
are
how it
sharp,
goes here,
knives
yeah,
can
for
cut,
sure.
and the basic task of making a sandwich can be dangerous if you are not careful. As time goes on, these lessons become second nature, and you begin to learn more complex, difficult lessons. But still, you were only trying to take care of yourself and keep yourself alive. However, that all changes
too bright
once
to
you
have
bring
on
a life
screen.
into the world. Parenthood immediately compounds the stresses of living as you become responsible for an
Creamed
entire
corn
other life.
freaks me out. I used
outside
to
of
love
your
it when
own.
I was younger.
Suddenly, you are in charge of teaching these lessons that are second nature to you, and making sure that this newly formed person
is it
has
doing
everything
this?
they need, even though they have no way to communicate. You are now responsible for every decision in their
Why
life.
does it just
and
do
for the
this
first time,
sometimes?
we'll
It's
have
so
to know as much
frustrating.
about someone else as you do about yourself. If that weren't enough, the stress is compounded by the reality that every decision that you make in raising your child can adversely affect them. Things like how much you hold your child, what you feed them, how you speak to them all matter. And on any given day, you could do something that traumatizes them. There are a barrage of parenting books that make dubious and contradicting claims in order to profit off of these stresses. One will say holding your
Kadishi's
child
iffy
too
because
much
there's
will make
such a
them mentally
wide
weak,
range
while
in
another
the
will
like
say not attending
textures
enough to them
available.
will
I
cause
still
them
love
to become
Kadishi's.
jaded and
It just has to
depressed,
have like
leading to
really
the same
thin
outcome.
whey and
another
very
will say
firm
that
curds.
you should be a militant force in your child's life.
The
and that they
less
should fear you
homogeneous, the
to show
better.
that they respect you, while another will encourage open and gentle communication. Each and every one of those books will state that their way is the only good way of parenting, and that it is the only way to ensure that your child grows up well-adjusted and ready to enter the world. However, in today's case, that couldn't be farther from the truth. Welcome back to another episode of Dreading.
I
brought to you
hate blue
today
cheese.
by
I
our
think it tastes
Patreon.
like
This
car
video
exhaust.
topic was highly requested by my Patreon members, as well as my subscribers, and for good reason. This case and the subsequent trial were streamed online, leading to a deluge of information about it being publicly accessible. The footage used in this video was taken from those live streams and has been copyright claimed by the original owner. That said, if you would like to support the channel, feel free to check out our Patreon, linked in the description below. If you like true crime videos like this one, please consider subscribing to the channel, as we post new videos every week. With that said and done, let us begin. Joel
never
Guy
heard of this
Sr.
case.
was born February 10th, 1955.
As far as I'm aware.
But those who knew him called him by his middle name, Michael. He worked as a pipeline engineer and made more than enough to support his future family off of his salary. To those who were lucky enough to know him in his life, he was extraordinarily kind and giving, always taking the time to make
Told you
sure
that
people
what is
around
caused
him
by
felt
parents
taken care
accidentally
of. He
traumatizing
wasn't a
their
strong,
oldest.
silent type of father. Rather, he would give you advice even if you didn't want it. He took great pride in everything he did, from his family to his work, and he spent a good deal of time trying to make sure those in his family knew that. He had 3 daughters from his previous marriage, Candace, Michelle, and Angela. And though he had to divorce their mother when the girls were incredibly young, he had maintained a beautiful relationship with them. So much so that when
Tourette's.
Michael eventually married his next wife, Lisa, she integrated into their family with no fallout. According to Michael's daughters, the relationship between Lisa and him was perfect. The pair seemed to complete each other effortlessly, and the girls were never made to feel unwanted, uncared for, or like they weren't her children. Lisa took special time and care to build a separate but impactful maternal relationship with Joel's daughters, always careful never to overstep any boundaries while still making the girls know how loved they were. One of Michael's daughters would even go so far as to say she was the ultimate mother figure, taking care of her sisters and her so well that when she would go on to mother her own children, she would try to replicate Lisa. Lisa was also their best friend, and every year, for about 1 month in the summertime, the entire family would get together. Like
Something's
Michael,
gonna happen to
Lisa was an
Lisa.
incredibly giving woman, often to her detriment. She worked in human resources for an engineering firm and was one of the most reliable workers there. She was the kind of person who would stop a stranger to ask them what was wrong if she saw them crying. And she was incredibly reliable,
Maybe this
always
is
following
happening,
through
right?
with whatever task she set her mind to. No matter what was going on in her personal life, she would make sure that everyone around her was properly taken care of. According to the family, Michael and Lisa were soulmates, and their lives were nearly perfect. Sometime after getting married, the pair had their first and only biological child, Joel Guy Jr., and this is where the troubles would begin. There isn't a lot known about Joel's life prior to 2016, namely because there was virtually no one who could say they really knew him. Not even his half-sisters, who would grow up alongside him, knew much about him, as every time they went over, he would shut himself away in his room, refusing to socialize with any member of the family. When he would talk to his relatives, he was incredibly rude towards them, always treating them as if they were unintelligent and not worth his time. This resulted in many family members shunning Joel and never truly engaging with him, even when the opportunity presented itself. Joel carried himself with the unchecked confidence of a narcissist, feeling as if he was genuinely the smartest person in every room. And while he was in school, his ego was sustained by the fact that he would perform extremely well academically.
I'm really scared that he's
in his
going
last years
to
of high
be the
school,
person
he
who
would be
killed
enrolled
Lisa,
in the Louisiana
and
School
probably
for
Joel,
Math,
too.
Science, and the Arts. The school was a selective magnet school with class sizes averaging 15 students at most, and it was well known that only the best and the brightest would be allowed to attend. And for Joel, being accepted into the class of 2006 was all the confirmation he needed that he was better than those around him. After graduating, Joel would go on to spend 1 semester at George Washington University before transferring to Louisiana State University, where he was studying to become a plastic surgeon. However, he would never go on to work as a plastic surgeon. In fact, he would never go on to work at all, because the entire time he was in school, up until he was 28 years old, he would get all of his mother's paychecks. The entire time she was working at Oak Ridge Engineering in the HR department, her checks would be sent to Joel, who would use them for whatever he wanted without any abandon. Lisa and Michael had decided to do this so he could focus solely on his studies without any needless distractions. They knew their son was intelligent, and they hoped that by covering all of his school, housing, and other costs, he would be able to graduate early and start his career in a shortened amount of time. However, this action would have an unintended consequence. Joel believed that the money that his mom was graciously giving him, the money that she earned by working full-time, was not her money to give, but was in fact his. He believed that she owed him that money as a sort of birthright, that he
That's
should be paid
wild.
continuously by his parents, even if he did nothing, and that was what he wanted to do. Though he was going to school, living full-time in Baton Rouge, and often told his parents that he was working extremely hard to achieve his goal, he was less focused on his classes and more focused on doing whatever he wanted, alone in his apartment. He had no concept of the financial burden he was placing upon his parents by extending his collegiate journey. nor did he have any concept of money in general, as it had always been given to him without question. In Joel's mind, his parents owed that to him, simply because they were his parents. However, when Michael was unceremoniously
This guy has
fired from
big-time
his
white
job
guy
and
syndrome.
began looking at the family's finances in 2016, he realized that if they wanted to, both he and Lisa could stop working and begin their retirement, which would mean no longer supporting Joel, who was 28. In the family group chat, Michael and Lisa spoke to their daughters about their
Does he
plan.
have a
They told them
fireplace
they were
too?
going to be selling
Right?
the family home and moving into Michael's
The old
parents' home
Jazzle
within the
Dazzle
next
doesn't
year.
have the
They
same
were
ring to
excited
it,
to
even
start
though,
the
yeah,
next
it does.
chapter
It
of their
totally
life,
does.
but they were also stressed about how Joel would take the news and what he would do for himself. But those fears were eased on Thanksgiving. In the Guy family, it was a tradition that every year on Thanksgiving, the entire family gathered at Michael and Lisa's house to celebrate. This included their daughters, their new families, and Michael's extended family as well. They would often congregate in the garage of the home, allowing their kids to run around and the parents to smoke together while the food was being made. In years past, this celebration had always precluded Joel, who would stay in his bedroom throughout the night, ignoring extended family if he ever left his room. There were also times when Joel decided not to make the trip out at all, choosing to stay in his own apartment alone. However, this year was different. Joel, for the first time in his life, was purposely interacting with his family. He played with his stepsister's kids, whose names his sister didn't think he even knew prior to that day, taking them upstairs to his old room and giving them some of his old toys, which his parents had kept in pristine condition while he was in college. He joked around and played with everyone.
Hi, Cryptid.
And it was
How
the
are
first
you?
time most of his sisters could recall him actually trying to be a part of the family.
Oh, no.
He was even photographed with the family, something that hadn't been possible in years past. The change in behavior was strange, as it came right off the heels of Lisa and Michael telling Joel that she had turned in her 2 weeks' notice to her job, and they would no longer be bankrolling him. They had previously planned on telling
Stuck at
him
work
over
for another
Christmas,
hour. Ugh.
but Lisa felt like he deserved to
Fresh
know the
tea is
moment
good
she
at
had put in
least.
her 2 weeks, as it would give him a bit more time to find his own means to take care of himself. Everyone had expected some kind of fallout or temper tantrum, but he appeared to be in better spirits than ever, which they took as a good sign. Maybe this was the kick in the pants that he needed to make something of himself. Maybe he had already planned for this kind of thing to happen and wanted to get back into the family's good graces.
Oh, I've been
One
hanging
of his
in there,
sisters even said
Cryptid.
as much to her father, but he maintained that even if that was the case,
Mostly just
they still
trying
wouldn't
to
be
get this
funding
cake
Joel's
done
lifestyle
here.
any further. Whatever it was, the family was happy.
We
he
did
was
go to the
interacting
beach
with
over the
them.
weekend.
That
That was
day,
nice.
he'd also brought over a couple of large plastic tubs, which seemed to be filled with heavy objects. However, no one in the family knew exactly what the tubs were for, and no one questioned him about it. What
Why?
they didn't know is that
Why
Joel had
didn't
spent
anybody
the
question
previous
him
weeks
about it?
planning his parents' murder, and he had brought the tools he utilized in their destruction with him, and that the entire reason he came to
God,
the
that
celebration
sucks.
that year was to lay
Hell
the
yeah,
groundwork
Kino.
to kill the
Fuck
only
work.
2 people in his life that took care of him. Though Joel appeared to be handling his parents cutting him off well to those around him, it was not. In fact, the moment he was made aware of his parents' plans, he decided to make a plan of his own, a plan to frame his father for his mother's brutal and horrific murder, and make their deaths look like a murder-suicide. This would be the first and seemingly only time he would use his education in the real world, and it would be incredibly disturbing. As stated previously, Joel believed himself to be incredibly intelligent, and the smartest person in every room he walked into. He had watched enough Law and Order and true crime shows to know how these things usually go, and despite being a layabout who had never done anything worthwhile in his life, he believed that killing his parents and getting away with it would be as easy as buying a Starbucks. But even though Joel had previously been academically gifted, he was not as intelligent as his God complex assured him he was. In fact, he was incredibly inept and unaware, and his superiority complex enabled him to make some of the most ridiculously stupid mistakes any criminal could ever make. The first and most obvious mistake being that he wrote his plan to kill his parents down 2 weeks before Thanksgiving in a notebook he dubbed the Book of Premeditation. He plotted the murder meticulously, and this is what he wrote.
Holy
Get
shit.
killing knives. Quiet multiple. Get carving knives to make small pieces. Get sledgehammer. Crush bones. Bring blender and food grinder. Grind meat. Get bleach. Denature proteins. Get plastic bin for denaturation process. Does not matter where they're killed. Just get rid of bloody spots to prevent evidence of time of death, not the mattress or the couches. Get rid of bodies inside the house. There and my DNA already there. Open up doggy door and provide entryway. That is crossed out and replaced with he needs to be blamed, not intruder. The he Joel's referring to is his dad. Flush chunks down toilet, not garbage disposal. Get plastic sheeting for disposal process. Get hollow point bullets just in case. That is also crossed out and replaced with will be seen buying bullets. Just use computer room gun. Check to make sure there are bullets. Last resort. He's not alive to claim her half of the insurance money. All mine. 500,000. Flood the house, cover up forensic evidence. Turn heater up as high as it goes. Speeds decomposition. Bleach reacts with luminol just like blood. Douse area with bleach. Big sprayer, lie. Trash compactor, body gives time of death. Alibi? Don't have to get rid of body if there is no forensic evidence on the body. His fingerprints and DNA. Minimize things I touch throughout visit. Wear gloves and socks to prevent fingerprints and footprints.
Oh my
Drop
goodness.
something down the garbage disposal to break it. Get him on the ground, fixing it. Kill him with the knife. Clean up mess from him before she gets home. Kill her with the knife. Kill dog after. That is also later
Why?
crossed out, and he replaces it with leave alive. Take dog with you. Place her in the shower. Turn on hot water and point at her to get rid of forensics. Remove her clothes and take them with me for disposal. Place him in plastic bin and use it to get him into the upstairs bathroom. Cut off his arm and plant his flesh under her fingernails. Place her hand with his DNA so that his DNA is not washed away by the shower. Use sodium hydroxide to destroy his soft tissue and soften bones for transport. Baste once every hour to accelerate. Flush sodium hydroxide down the toilet. Wash out bin with handheld shower head and then direct handheld into the toilet to flush everything out of the pipes and into the public waterway. Douse killing room or rooms, possibly the kitchen, with bleach. Place hair curler with flammable paper in flammable containers of gasoline in 4 locations. His killing room, her killing room, his bathroom, her bathroom. Wipe down areas near killing rooms and bathrooms.
I am blown
Turn
away by
heaters up
this.
to 90 degrees
Especially
to
kill
melt
dog.
fingerprints and dry everything. Set her phone up to send a text message late Sunday to prove I was in Baton Rouge and she was alive. Leave through the front door and wipe down the doorknobs. Timer for flammable set for Friday at 10 a.m.
Is he gonna try to convince them that he didn't do
Not
it?
the smoke. Everyone's at work, so they can't record it. That wasn't all that the notebook included. On the next page, Joel made more notes. Ultraviolet light shows fingerprints was underlined and followed with check mail before leaving. To get rid of blood, use peroxide, hemoglobin, and bleach, DNA. On a page
changed his
labeled
mind about the
destruction
dog.
of
Yeah, but
bodies,
he was
wrote
evil
out
enough to
what
have
he
that
believed
thought in the
to be
first
the
place.
composition of his parents' bodies, that being 20% fat, 20% protein, 55% water, and 5% other chemicals. And on the last page, Joel was even kind enough to write out exactly why he was set on killing the parents who had supported him his entire life. On the page labeled Assets, he wrote, her assets, her life insurance policy, $500,000, possibly more with indemnity. With him missing/dead, I get the whole thing. All of her other assets are joint. Go to him if missing. Unknown if he is dead. His assets includes all joint property if missing. When he gets all joint property, also gets joint debt. Knoxville house. Homeowners insurance possibly, but probably worthless after fire. Oh, $100,000. Sir Gowensville house. Appraised at $400,000 plus. Worthless with Renee on property. Her car, his SUV, not
Same,
paid
J-Rod.
for. His boat, his old truck, paid for. His 401k, $89,000, possibly less after taxes. He could possibly have savings and or investments accounts. Joel had written out his motive for the crime and kept it on him for the next couple weeks as he went from store to store, buying different materials he would use in the murder, including knives,
Wild.
muriatic acid, and the plastic storage bins he had brought to Thanksgiving. He kept the notebook in his backpack, along with his school books.
Why?
He felt completely inconspicuous with it. despite the fact that it had clear evidence of his plans. He tried to be careful not to draw too much attention to himself when he was out by only buying a few supplies at a time and checking himself out whenever it was available. He made sure to use cash for every transaction as well, to avoid leaving a paper trail. However, all his excruciatingly detailed planning would be for naught. 2 days after Thanksgiving, Joel set his plan into action, and immediately everything went wrong. He had broken the garbage disposal in the house, and had asked his father to fix it, hoping that once he was on the ground, he could easily overpower him and kill him with his knife. However, Michael didn't care. The house had already been sold, and they were already in the process of moving out into their new home, so he brushed off the broken garbage disposal as if it were nothing. That threw a wrench into Joel's plan, and a pretty big one at that. Joel was not a physically active person. In fact, in the previous months, Joel's roommate had barely seen him leave his bedroom, and he would often spend time either in bed or stationary at his desk. On the opposite side of the physical spectrum was Michael. Michael would regularly work out and had converted a bonus room in the house into his personal home gym. He was an incredibly active guy and had always been physically fit, so taking him head on would be a challenge. Joel's plan was already ruined, but for the first time in his life, Joel didn't give up. Whether it be his rampant narcissism telling him he would be able to take his father out easily, or his belief that the first stab would kill his father quickly, Joel waited until his father was in the home gym on one of the machines and began stabbing him. Michael didn't go down easy. He fought Joel tooth and nail, even managing to get the knife away from his son for a while, and defended himself against him with it, which resulted in Joel getting a massive gash to his thumb that would require medical attention. But Joel would end up killing his father brutally, stabbing him a total of 42 times, showing an extreme amount of rage. The wounds were so deep that at one point, part of the knife had broken off into Michael's body. Joel wanted the killing to be as clean as possible. That way, his DNA wouldn't be present at the crime scene, beyond what would be expected since he had been visiting that weekend, and so that the cleanup would be easy. But that clearly had not been possible. His blood was all over the home gym, mixed with his father's, and there was blood splatter everywhere. Still, Joel did his best to clean up the scene before his mom came home from the grocery store. When Lisa came home, Joel called her up to the second story. She brought in the groceries from the car, leaving them by the front door in order to go check on Joel, and was promptly killed. Lisa's autopsy would show that she wasn't able to put up much of a fight as her husband had, but that seemed not to matter to Joel. He went on to stab her a total of 31 times. He stabbed her with so much force that it severed 9 of her ribs, and was likely dead shortly after the attack started, meaning the force he used was out of sheer anger towards the woman who had given him her own paycheck for his entire adult life. After killing both of his parents, Joel set on the second part of his plan, which was to dispose of the bodies. His well-thought-out plan, according to his notebook, which he had brought to the crime, was simple. He wanted to make it look like his father had attacked his mother by getting some of his DNA under her fingernails, dismembering them both, then bathing them in a chemical mixture until their bodies disintegrated, flushing the chunks of their bodies that remained down the toilet, somehow leaving only her hands with his DNA under them, clean the house entirely, leaving no signs of the actual murder, and then burn down the entire house. This plan was nonsensical for a barrage of reasons, all of which Joel didn't realize, because he thought he was too clever to come up with something as stupid as his plan was. But even though his plan had been illogical, and would have no doubt gotten him caught, he chose not to follow his own instructions. Instead, Joel first went out to the store his mother had been to earlier in the day to pick up a first aid kit. That way he could bandage his hand better. He then returned to home and began to dismember his father. He cut his father's hands off at the wrist and severed his arms at the shoulder blades. He then severed his legs at the hip with a saw and severed his right foot at the ankle, leaving it in the exercise room where he had been killed. He then cut his mother's body up in an identical fashion, except he also decapitated her, which it wasn't enough for Joel to just cut off his mother's head, as according to the coroner in the trial, Joel physically tore her head off using force.
Amazon. It comes in a carton.
For no other reason than to disrespect the body of the only woman to ever love him, he put her head in a cast iron pot with water on the stove and began to boil it. The amount of sheer disrespect Joel showed towards his parents is nothing short of horrifying. There is absolutely no explanation
12
for
sets?
it. Some people who have learned about this
thought it was
case
like
have
8 or 9.
hypothesized that there must have been some sort of underlying abuse that occurred in the
Okay,
home.
I have
Something
to
that
look
must have
at
happened that would
my
explain the sheer lengths Joel went, but that
Excuse
isn't the
me.
case.
pattern
Joel
here.
felt like he was owed their money, their attention, and their admiration, simply for existing, and they had cut him off for his own good. For him, that was enough reason to kill them the way that he did. I want to make it abundantly clear here, as the hypothesizing about Michael and Lisa feels incredibly disrespectful towards their memory. Joel then cut his mother's body up the same way he had done to his father. He then placed his parents' torsos and limbs into two 45-gallon plastic containers with a chemical
so we
mixture meant to disintegrate
I'm
their
on
bodies
the last
and turn
row
the
of the
thermostat to
middle
90 degrees,
panel here, the
hoping
back
that it
panel.
would speed up the rate of decomposition.
Crow, how are
and,
you?
according to his notebook, he believed that if the entire house got hot, it would eliminate fingerprints. After this, Joel was tired. His injuries had begun to really bother him. After taking a small inventory of his wounds, he realized he would probably need to get some sort of medical attention soon, especially since the chemicals he was using to dispose of his parents' bodies could be harmful towards him. But if he were to go to a hospital in the area, police would be able to connect him to his parents' murders. So Joel decided that instead of cleaning up the home, disposing of their bodies, and really doing anything that would hide what he had done, he would just go back to his apartment in Baton Rouge, get medical attention at the university clinic, and casually go back to the home and finish cleaning up later on. Not that he was in any sort of hurry. It wasn't as if Michael and Lisa were well-loved and admired members of the community, and people would realize something was wrong if they didn't hear from them. He had nothing but time. Better yet, Joel decided to leave crucial pieces of evidence in the home, including his own blood mixed in with his father's on the floor, the knife that was used in the attack, and the notebook, in which Joel wrote his entire game plan on killing his parents.
What an
He left the
idiot!
notebook
How
in
is
his
he
school
that
bag,
stupid
and
for
though the
somebody
notebook
who's
itself
supposedly
didn't have his
smart?
name on it, it was surrounded by books that were clearly labeled as belonging to him. For whatever reason, Joel believed that he could take his time cleaning up the crime scene. It never occurred to him that his parents, as loved as they were, would be missed. Monday, November 28th, 2016, Lisa was scheduled to begin her last week of work. Lisa had told her
But
boss,
he was
Jennifer
smart,
Whited,
is the thing.
that
Like,
she
he
would
was
be working up
gifted,
until December.
supposedly.
And given that it was her last week, Jennifer and some other co-workers had planned to make it special. Lisa was well loved within the company, and they had planned to go on a special lunch that day to celebrate her retirement. And when Lisa failed to show up, Jennifer began to worry. Again, Lisa had been with the company for years, and she had always been incredibly reliable. If she was running late, a call would have been made. If she was sick, she would let people know. She wasn't the type to leave others hanging, especially not when they had special plans. At first, Jennifer tried not to worry. She called Lisa's phone a couple of times and got no response. She then tried to contact Michael, who likewise didn't pick up. Sensing that something really wasn't right, she made this call.
Monday, November 28, 2016 at 9:38 a.m. with a GMT offset of negative 300 minutes. Agent ID is extension is 203. Police Communications Center. Yes, I have an employee that has not reported for work today and highly unlike her. I've tried calling her home number, I've tried calling cell phone and can't get a hold of her. What can we do about that? Can somebody go by and check on them?
Yeah, do you know her address?
I do.
What is that?
Oh,
it is
no.
11434 Golden View Lane.
And what is your name, ma'am?
My name is Jennifer Whited, Whited.
And what company are you with?
Jacobs Engineering.
And what's a good callback for you guys?
It is 865-216-6625.
Okay, what's the employee's name?
Lisa Guy, Guy. Her husband's name is Joel, Joel.
Should he be there too? Does he live with her?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
And they do have a dog named Jake. I think he's a big baby.
Okay. How old is she, do you know?
She is in her, I think, late 50s.
Do you know if she has any medical issues?
No, I mean, she has high blood pressure, but that's all that I know of.
See you later, Moth. Have a good one. Thanks for hanging out.
I know that their house is for sale, and they are moving, and she is leaving our company, but that's supposed to be
Ask
Friday. And
Chungus
this
Circle.
definitely isn't like her just not to show up.
I'll send a call over to officers, have them swing by and check on her. And if anything changes before then, just give us a call back here, okay?
At the same number?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
The police sent out Officer Stephen Ballard, who did a fairly standard check of the home. He knocked on the front door, declared that he was looking for Lisa and Michael, and circled the home for a short while, trying to see if anyone was there. However, after getting no response and not noting anything off about the home, Officer Ballard
did not
reported that
leave.
the home seemed fine and that the couple was probably all right.
This is me arriving at 11434 Golden View. And at this point, I'm going to approach the front door.
Well, at least we know that this story has the happiest ending it could have and that he got caught, hey?
K96, 297.
He was at his hitman gig. He was in uniform.
I rung the doorbell at this point. Yes, sir. This is where I'm going to the side of the
As you
residence
can
to
see,
try to
the
check the
police
back.
that out of this door. Right, Kudo. No, I agree. The happiest ending it can have, barring their survival, right? There is no happy ending to stories like this, you know? But at least some people get closure because they get to know, like, what happened to these people that were so loved.
I rung the doorbell again and just waiting to see if I get a response.
Crows. I love crows.
However, Jennifer
Me too,
refused
J-Rod.
to
I've been
accept
feeding
that.
my
She
crows
demanded
out
the
front
police
for
go
a
back
while.
to
They
the home
finally
and
hang
speak
out
to the
while
couple if
I
they could. At this
while I
point,
pour
she had
them
reached
while
out
I
to
pour the
others
kibble for
and had
them.
found out that no one had heard from the couple since that Saturday.
I just
Officer
learned that you're not
Ballard
supposed
went
to
back
make
to the
eye
home,
contact
this time
with them because
Officer
that's a
Jeremy
show of
McCord,
aggression
and at
and
once, McCord realized something was
burdenese.
very off.
With
Hi, non-binary demon, non-berry demon.
McCord, we will climb that fence.
Yeah, the pattern is in chat. I'm making a hooded cape, hooded cloak, whatever you want to call it. This is for my partner's mother. Yep, Ray Kudo, it seems like that's a fucking spoiled white kid thing to do. He already didn't have to work. They had his ass covered, but they were pulling the money.
Yes, sir. Detective McCord is actually.
It doesn't matter though. He was
where the doorknob
becoming a
was
fucking
missing.
plastic surgeon. He was gonna be richer than they ever were. He just didn't want to. And while I sympathize heavily with not wanting to work, I can never sympathize with killing your parents instead.
Here's the deal. They said that they purchased a house in Johnson City, so hopefully he'll have information on it.
They're saying Robertsville, the neighbors.
And the realtor's saying Johnson City.
Well, it's relatively close, yeah.
That doggy door? Yeah, there's supposed to be a hound dog. See, the hound dog's not out, the hound dog's not barking, all their cars are here. Okay.
I didn't even see the tiles.
Get the... Give me one of the bricks back over when you get over. Oops,
Oh, yeah.
you alright?
Cop noises.
No. No, one's good.
Is this a little loud now? I'm gonna do this
You
and
home?
this.
I'm going back off for a minute.
The house had a for sale sign in
Is
the
this
front,
too
but the front
quiet?
door didn't appear to have a lockbox for a realtor key, and it appeared the front doorknob had been changed recently, given there were marks on the knob that looked like it had come into contact with a screwdriver. It also didn't appear to match the door itself. The pair then traveled to the back of the house and found that the back door was missing its doorknob. McCord looked into the home from the doorknob hole and immediately felt heat radiating from inside the home. There was also a distinct chemical smell, which made sense, as he could see large bottles of bleach on the floor, unopened. He also saw through the home to the front door and noticed the groceries that Lisa had dropped on the floor before she was beckoned upstairs by Joel. It was clear that something was wrong in the home, and McCord determined they had enough probable cause to enter. After returning to the front of the home, both Stephen and Jeremy looked for a way into the home and found an unlocked vehicle with a garage door opener. The following is the body cam footage of the pair entering the home and stumbling across the horrific crime scene.
Oh God. He didn't give a warning, so it's probably not too
It
crazy.
appears that Officer Graves had went into one of the guy's vehicle. I couldn't tell what he was doing at that point, but the garage door does open.
There's no way there's gonna be gore on YouTube.
I hear a dog howling.
Poor dog is
According to
probably
both
fucking
officers, when they entered
starving.
the home, their skin began to negatively react to the chemicals that hung in the air.
Police!
Unbeknownst to the officers, Lisa's head was boiling in the pot on the stove and had been
Oh my
for about a day
God.
at this point.
Department Sheriff's Office!
Please save that poor dog. They're gonna shoot it. They're cops.
Sheriff's Office!
You will begin to hear howls of a dog. Joel had locked the family dog in the upstairs laundry room before his attack started and had left them there without food or water. The dog was
Poor
extremely affected by the
baby.
heat, the chemicals, and witnessing their owner's violent death, but is still alive today and is doing well.
Okay, good. Thank you, Dreading Man.
Yes, sir.
My little heart wouldn't have been able to take it if they had put that dog down or something.
Knox County Sheriff's Office! Back everybody out. That's blood, right? Everybody okay? That blood or boo-boo?
On the stairs, the police began to notice blood droplets from the murders. At this point, they still have no idea what they've walked into.
Anybody got gloves on? Yeah, I'm on.
That poor pupper. This is killing me. Listening to that poor dog howl. But he had a list and a perfect plan. Seems like it. But I bet they have a pretty good guess. Yeah, it feels a little sus. I feel like I would immediately know that that was a murder scene if all of that stuff was true of a house I just walked into on a wellness check for a missing person.
Knox County Sheriff's Office!
I've got one, probably one down here too, Jim. I'm going right, Benji.
And that's where I noticed the hands at the end of the hallway.
This room's clear.
Please save the puppy.
Hold up. Good, Jeremy? We got clear. Let's go. You going across? Got you.
Okay, that was hands. We just saw the hands. The head, too, right, Kudo?
Clear.
It's like he watched Chaz's fucking playbook and somehow made it stupider.
Yeah, I think so. That's what I think. That's what it looks like.
It's your fucking hand. Get out now.
I ain't cleared. We not cleared this. There's blood all over it though. You want to?
Can't back out. Everybody back out.
We need to start.
No.
What do you got here?
Everything else ready. You know, we're going. Everything else ready. I'll get on that. Don't call anybody else. I don't need shit blown.
Why aren't they saving that fucking dog? I'm fucking over it. Pieces of shit. Have a goddamn heart.
Back out. Out through the garage, same way we came in. Don't touch that.
I don't think there was a girl, right, Kudo? I don't think there was any kind of girl.
Police find Michael's dismembered hands on the ground in a room and make the executive decision to call the site in as a crime scene, still entirely unaware of what they have stumbled into. Because this was a routine welfare check, no one involved at this point had the experience to catalog the crime scene as it was, and it was clear, given dismembered hands on the floor, that this was not a normal crime scene. To put this into perspective, most crime scenes are relatively cut and dry and only really involve one room. And
I
one
remember the
rash
girlfriend
action.
from the other.
The extreme amount of malice and clear forethought.
Yeah, I remember. That's how we found out about
superseded
Chazzle Dazzle.
Most crime scenes that
I'm
have
saying
occurred
this
in
dude
that year
was
alone. All of the officers involved in this case have
not.
stated
He
that
was
what they witnessed
antisocial.
in that
He
house
did not have
was one of the most gruesome scenes
any ideas
they've
about
ever
any
seen,
girls.
and multiple
There was
people
no
quit
girl involved in
shortly
this one.
thereafter. This is also why they didn't remove the dog from the premises until they were
But
sure
leave the
they
hands,
could do
fuck
so
it, you're
without
not
negatively
wrong.
affecting the scene. After calling the home in, this video was taken, documenting the house as it was found.
As you can see from the crime scene tape, it's very windy, and that's going to matter in just a minute in the video. It's very windy that day, so in the video, in just a moment, you're going to see why that matters, because this is something that we would not normally do on a scene that's about to happen. That would probably be, yeah. Is that where I can kind of explain what we're coming to as we come to it?
My boy.
So
How you
again,
been, son?
It's really windy. And this is just like approaching the garage. And this evidence marker is on its side to mark this piece of evidence. And it's so windy it blows it over. And so I'm using my gloved hand to grab it and put it with it like inside the garage to keep it from blowing away again. So this is approaching through the garage. Into a sort of eating kitchen area.
Well, he got his wish. He ain't working. You do have to work in prison. They give you a job, whether you want it or not.
So a table in the eat-in kitchen. Random items in the kitchen floor.
Yeah, really random. Very random items.
And then this is the kitchen proper.
They can make your life hell. Reploid God, it's good to see you. How are you?
So it's important to note here that the stovetop is on in this large stock pot. No.
Really wasting his mom's money, yeah? Hopefully it went to the daughters. The stepdaughters. And their families.
So this is continuing kind of
How are you, Reploid God? It's very good to see you.
to the other side of the kitchen counter. And then on into the formal dining room area of the residence.
Either way, she would have, hey? He did buy the killing knives with her money. Literally her paycheck. Sounds like they got the dog out of there at least. Thank goodness. Poor thing. Oh, we're hanging in there, just watching another disgusting case of fucking... What's it called when you kill both parents? Because it's not matricide or patricide at that point. I mean, I guess it's just both of those things. A family annihilation from an entitled son.
So this is, I'm stepping into the foyer of the residence. This is the front door, and it faces the street. And here I'm noting that the
Yeah, that's fair enough. Don't
heating
Google
unit
it.
for the house, for the downstairs of the house, is set to 90 degrees, and it was very,
It
very
might
warm in
be
there.
like familicide. I'm not sure.
And that's the front door and some miscellaneous groceries that are sitting in the floor.
God, they were just gonna have some beers and relax. These poor people.
There were.
I'll Google it. Fuck it. Okay.
So this is just a half bath that's in the downstairs.
It is familicide. Oh, where a killer's spouse and children are slain. What about the parents? It's the parents. He killed his parents.
So this is the living room downstairs in the residence. And you can see on this side it's open to the eat-in kitchen. This is the back door, and you'll note it's missing a doorknob. I don't believe this one was on.
Parasite or parenticide. Okay.
So off the living room here is this kind of little office area. So
Thank
that's where
you,
the next
Reploid
doorway
God.
is.
Yeah, Sperry, we went over that and we were like, well, it's both of them, so maybe there's a different word. Also, hi, Barry. How are you? You survived the heat wave? Nice. He was a parasite. He literally just took his mom's paychecks and like was entitled to it. Looks like more is coming. Same up here. It's been way too hot and we don't have AC. It's rough. It's been brutal. You guys are dark. What have I done to you?
So this is back through the foyer.
It's
So
not
there's
just
some
a
reddish brown
phase,
staining
Mom.
here, and we refer to things that we believe to be blood as reddish brown staining in forensics before they're tested and confirmed by a lab to be blood. So if you hear us refer to RBS or reddish brown staining, that's what that is.
I love this lady's voice. I'm like
So
obsessed
more
with
RBS down the
voices.
side of the wall,
Especially
and here at this
though, I
gate,
love
and on the
low
banister as
femme,
well.
and I think that maybe that's a narcissistic thing because I'm low femme. But like that, it's my favorite. My favorite is low femme.
So this is just the landing at the top of the stairs, just kind of small, almost foyer type area.
That's a bit of a relief if you think so. Reploid. Oh god, is that the clothes they were wearing? Jeez Louise. Jeez
There's more
Louise.
that reddish brown staining on the wall.
Ooh, Raikudo, tell more. I'm gonna pull a statistic out of my ass, but I'd say most human conflict can be boiled down
This is
to
the
they're
master
not
bedroom
like
of the
us.
residence.
I think that you're onto something there. You're not wrong, J-Rod. Every
We
part
had
of
to
his
turn the
plan
volume
got
of the
fucked
video
up,
down
hey?
so that you could hear me speak while I describe it. But the sound in the video changes at this point. There's a loud noise in here because there's a heater on and blowing within the room. Yes.
I don't know. I don't remember if... I think I fasten off here. Let me check. I do finish off. And we can take this time to
You
weave
see the
in.
bag moving right there in the breeze being put off from the heater. It was turned on very, I think at the highest setting it could go.
And then it's time for left front panel. Actually, I'll wait to weave in the ends until the end of the project. I know it's not as fun to watch. I know, Reploid got, it was doing that with the poor pupper too. The poor pupper barking. Alright, we can lose these stitch markers now too, because we won't be counting anymore on that. Please. Why is that wrapped in newspaper? From packing maybe, since they were moving?
This is one of my coworkers who's also on scene with me.
Okay. So now we are starting in this stitch here to do the left panel. And I think that we have to
So
do
this is
a
the heater that was
bunch
on.
of rows just normal.
Yes, it is set to the number 3 setting, which is presumably the highest fan setting on it, like a fan. And this is going into the master bathroom.
Damn it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so for 4 rows,
what
we
you're
just go
seeing
back and
here
forth.
is
No sweat.
plastic sheeting that's on the ground.
Okay,
and 2
that's
large
human remains.
Rubbermaid type tubs. And this is a shower with a hose attached to the top attachment. The shower head has been removed and a hose has been put there instead, like a garden hose type of thing.
Welcome back, J-Rod. We just saw the murder weapon. Or maybe a dismemberment tool.
It was liquid with pieces of human body in it, in each of them. Both tubs had body parts in them and they were kind of bulging on the sides. There is a heater in the bathroom. At
Y'all
this
making
time,
bear
it's not
puns.
on.
You think you'd
The
enjoy it?
master
I feel
bedroom
like
area
it
of
would
the
take
house
you
was
a while
definitely the
to
warmest part of the
start
house.
enjoying
The
it.
upstairs was even warmer than the
I feel like
downstairs of the
it
house.
hits
So,
everybody harder than they expect it
the
to
only-
at
to the-
first.
to the best of my
You know what I
recollection,
mean?
The only heater that's on besides the central heat and air units is the one here in the master bedroom. See, this is the heater I'm talking about that's in the master bedroom, but it's turned off right now. It's unplugged.
Especially
So this
with
is a set of,
kids and stuff.
Dishwashing gloves that are turned inside out on the counter there. This is the rest of the hose.
And animals, yeah, absolutely.
This is back through the master bedroom.
You're the only other person in here besides me, J-Rod, that every time there's an animal involved in one of these, we're like, okay, but is the animal alright? Like, more concerned about the animals than the
One of the
people.
closets in the master bedroom.
I just care more, I'm not gonna lie.
Now we're walking back into the upstairs foyer.
Oh fuck, did I take the wrong? I didn't. Okay, we're good.
And now we're going into the guest bedroom.
Zombie broccoli is one of us Gooble Gobble. That's true. See you later,
There's more
Dragon
reddish brown
Rana.
staining in the floor.
Have a good one.
A suitcase here. These are tops to blue Rubbermaid containers that were similar, if not the same ones, for the ones in the master bath. So these are the lids. And there's a bunch of textbooks here and some medication.
I wouldn't have guessed without you having said anything, Bungie Fox. But I believe you.
This is a dresser. There's like a box of bullets there. Box of gloves that's been opened. A container of hydrogen peroxide. It's food grade hydrogen peroxide with some reddish brown staining on it.
I don't really know what to say to
On the
that,
other side of the bed
Reploid
is a
God. I feel like
backpack.
that borders on ableism, or maybe just even is ableism.
And then moving towards the bed. There's some reddish brown staining on the bed.
It's not like I dislike them. I have a hard time
And a laptop computer.
not feeling sad for them, but like what else am I supposed to do? Like it sucks. It sucks that you have to go through life with that challenge, that added challenge.
This is back out into the foyer.
J-Rod. I feel that way though. Like Cujo is a horror movie to me because I
And
know
this is
what's
the
coming at the
upstairs
end.
temperature
You know what I
control.
mean? Not because a bunch of people get hurt.
And it's at 95 degrees at this point. So this is kind of across the hallway from the guest room is a room that I think we refer to in our notes as a storage room.
I feel like the gym is gonna be
Some more
very
reddish brown
bad.
Standing on the door frame of that room.
See you later, Crow. Have a good one. Thanks for hanging out. This next row we might have a buttonhole. I think we do. Is this the buttonhole side? Oh, it's not. Never mind. I'm a big dumb liar. Please disregard. HIV and it developed into AIDS.
So
Eventually,
we're
leading
coming
to
back
her
out into the
shriveling
hallway
up
at
into
this
nothing, and I
point.
could barely stomach seeing it. Man, that's so sad. That's so sad. I'm sorry to hear that, bud.
And there's a bathroom on the right, a laundry room on the left, and straight ahead is kind of a bonus exercise room kind of thing. It's over the garage of the residence.
Yeah, this is where he struggled with his dad, who couldn't bear to kill his son. So he just died instead.
So this is the hall bathroom.
Totally Reploid. It sucks, and I'm sad to hear that you had to like witness that. When my mom passed, it was in an instant. I didn't have to watch her suffer or anything. Hey Phoenix, how are ya?
Right here in the corner, what we're trying to show is that there's a pile of, looks like used medical tape, and bandage type stuff.
Oh, you have to move? Gross, that sucks.
So there's a lot of stuff
I'm
on
hanging
top
in
of the
there.
vanity.
This
And
one's
a
a
lot of reddish
struggle.
brown staining.
More good people being killed by their entitled brat son, who just didn't want to get a job, so killed his parents for the money. Ended up getting caught. Jesus. Nice house, though. It is a nice house. We have to stay in a temporary place for a few weeks because of some bullshit, and the new owner's not giving us 2 weeks. Honestly, I should shit on the floor and rub it into the wood. I'm in support of that. Fuck a landlord. If it's not a housing co-op, then... upper deckers all around, straight up.
So this is across the hallway into the laundry room.
New owners who want to move in before the co-op are going to can interview my sister. All we need is 2 weeks. Yeah, that's such a bummer. I hope you like your new place, though. That you at least you get the excitement of moving into a new place. My sister could have forced them to give us the 2 weeks because squatters' law makes it impossible to remove someone, and the New York court system would take a year for an official eviction. Yeah, I feel like that ends up costing you money, though. Like, kind of a lot of money. I would have threatened them with that, though, because it would have been a bigger pain in the ass for them. It would have cost you less than the Airbnb, really? Maybe you should do it.
And this is back to the room above the garage.
Jeez Louise.
Looks like it's set up as an exercise room / possible guest room.
I want a home gym so bad. Going to end up hurting them anyway because now we have to put the FiOS account on hold rather than transferring it to the new address so they can have the house wired for internet or TV. And the house is already blacklisted by Optimum due to former tenants. Nice. What other legal things can you do? Jesus!
Right back here at where this overturned Bowflex is. Wait till we get back to it. Right here was a set of what appeared to be male human hands that were severed from any other part of. They were just the hands.
Get the house blacklisted by all food delivery in the area. Oh, fuck yeah. We also have to put all mail to the house on hold so they don't get our mail before we can have it forwarded. So their mail is going to be shut down for 2 weeks. Yeah, fuck those guys. If they're going to be that fucking pushy about getting into their new place, like, so much so that they fuck over the people that live there, like, fuck them.
So more
And
reddish
take
standing
the
on
doors.
the door of this closet in this room.
I don't remember the password and passcode to the Nest thermostat or the Nest account, and I don't feel the need to lift a finger to find out what it is, so the heat won't work for them. Get fucked, people. Do you have a garage? You can take the garage door openers and say that they were lost. Just use your phone and crank the heat. That is so much blood. Jesus. Okay, y'all, I have to pee. I'm so sorry. I've been holding out. I thought that I would be able to make it to the end of this, like, house tour thingy. Oh, there's only 12 minutes left of the whole video. I can wait till the end of the video.
So these blinds are torn or broken.
I can. I totally
This large
can.
amount.
Oh,
The entire
with
house was
dehydrate.
searched, and
You
Lisa and
fucker.
Michael's loved ones were notified, all except for Joel. When the police began to question those closest to Mike and Lisa and inquired about who was at the house that weekend, everyone pointed to Joel. His sisters mentioned that he was being cut off financially soon, and that his demeanor over the Thanksgiving holiday had been entirely out of character. The soiled clothing they had found at the crime scene
I have pretty
matched the
good
description
control over my
given by his
bladder. I'll
sisters,
be okay.
and after finding the book bag with the notebook filled with Joel's plan, they knew he was behind the crime. They just needed to get the proper paperwork filled out to arrest him. In the meantime, the police assigned officers to find and follow Joel, just in case. Everyone seemed to understand who was behind the murders at once, except for Joel, who didn't even know they had been discovered. Joel was completely and utterly unaware that the police had even discovered his unfinished crime scene, and was living comfortably in Baton Rouge. He had taken some of his parents' credit cards and paid his landlord multiple months in advance, paid off part of his school, and more,
They're supposed
trying
to
to
be the
make sure
contract
that
and
he
have
would
time
be
to buy
able
and
to
move into a new
maintain
home. They
the
insist
status
on
quo
dropping
of
that
his
to 30
life
days from
while he
closing,
waited
and my
for the
sister didn't argue it.
$500,000 life
Why she
insurance
didn't
policy to follow
that?
through. He was so entirely disconnected from the rest of his family that as they mourned the horrific death of their loved ones, he continued living, buying himself little treats for a job he
It
assumed
vibrated. I
was
think
well
I need to
done.
plug this
The
in.
day after their bodies were discovered, Joel would end up being arrested while on his way back to the home, and horrifically had a KitchenAid meat grinder in the trunk of his car.
That's
Joel himself
so
would never
awful.
admit to having committed the murders, and despite the backlog of evidence against him, he would plead not guilty, condemning the rest of the family to a 4-day-long
This
trial.
fuckface.
He knew he couldn't overcome the deluge of evidence against him, and he didn't want to. He wasn't stupid enough to think that he was going to win the trial, but he was narcissistic enough to want his family to be forced to hear the details of what he had done to hurt them further. He more or less viewed the trial as a bid for control, and even went so far as to represent himself for a time being, demanding to be given the death penalty if he was found guilty. Joel Guy Jr. knew that simply pleading guilty and admitting to what he had done would relinquish any sort of emotional hold he had on his siblings, who he resented. He wanted
Didn't
to
realize the
ensure
co-op
that they
take their
could never
sweet-ass
truly
time to
know what
interview
happened to
you.
their parents or why he felt they needed to die. During the trial, his lawyers could barely defend him, to the point where many others covering the case have taunted the legal practitioners for making nonsensical arguments. That said, every citizen has the right to a fair trial, and their inability to defend someone who left a notebook admitting to the crime at the scene and is obviously guilty is not indicative of their competency. Their main strategy was to state that the notebook that had been found at the crime scene, though surrounded by Joel's books and items, was never subjected to handwriting analysis, and therefore couldn't be confirmed as belonging to them. They also tried to argue that Joel couldn't have been the killer, because 2 days earlier, during Thanksgiving, he was outgoing and kind for the first time in his life. Obviously, neither of those arguments worked. After the 4-day trial ended, in which Joel never showed any remorse or sadness at what had been done to his family, he was sentenced
Welcome
to
back.
life in prison. However, there was one more shocking thing that came out of the trial, and that was Joel Guy Jr.'s relationship with his only friend, Michael McCracken. Throughout his life, Joel had purposely isolated himself. He never spoke to his sisters, he refused to engage with his aunts and extended family members, and he seemed like a person who enjoyed being alone. However, people were shocked to find that Joel actually had one friend, one that he felt so strongly towards that he called in prison to apologize to.
1 1 7 8 6 1 2 9 2 inmate ID 1 6 0 0 1 1 3 1 1 9 date 2016 12 10 time 1 1 4 5.
That's the friend?
2 dialed number 1 3
Jesus
3
Christ.
7 2 7
We get it.
4 4 5 5 3 from station 3 1 0 4. Press 1 for English. Oprima el 2. The time is 11:45 a.m. Press 1 to place a... Please enter your PIN number. after the tone.
Fucking hello?
We genuinely had a very, very realistic chance of being happy if I got around to doing that.
Yes. Correct.
Show them before you continue on. Folks, I want to point something out to you. You'll see words at the bottom. That is a typed transcript. It is not in evidence in this case. What is in evidence is actually the call itself. What the words you're reading are actually something that some administrative assistant sat down and listened to and typed it up, and it's what the lawyers think is being said, and it's there to help you follow along. But I want to be clear that those words are not in evidence. So if you hear something different on that call
Jesus
than
Christ.
what you see typed, you're to disregard what you see is typed there and go with what your ears are telling you, because that's actually the evidence. All right, Joe, you make a deal.
Well, I've pretty much fucked everything up. I don't really have much of a chance of being happy anymore. But you do. You do. Eventually you're going to meet somebody, and you've claimed that I haven't been an albatross or anything before, but I certainly would be now.
I cannot understand what's being said.
On that basis, I think you should probably just sort of consider me dead and move on with your life. So, I'm not going to try to initiate any more contact with you beyond sort of, the practical concerns we discussed earlier. And I may do that with a lawyer because I genuinely do want you to be happy. And that's pretty much the end of my outburst. So there you go. Okay.
Were they dating?
I mean, I don't know if there is anything to say. I'm not here. Tell me I'm a fucking idiot. Tell me, why did I do this? Blah, blah, blah. How could you, just have stream of consciousness about anything and everything related or not anything I just said. I just did word vomit at you just now. So, word vomit at something real. It hurts my heart. All of it. I don't know. You've been my best friend for my entire adult life. I don't know that would ever have changed regardless of what you did. I wasn't new.
1 minute remaining.
Oh, shit. Can you write more time? I'm not fully surprised. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Why is he not totally surprised?
I am angry and lost and confused and disappointed and upset and mourning you like your day, even though I'm talking to you on the phone and I don't. It's taking everything I have to process and maintain my sanity. That is the biggest thing here is that I think of you all the time. You were the only good thing in my life.
They were definitely dating.
You're the only thing on this?
Very little is known about the relationship between Michael and Joel. but it seemed at the very least Joel respected Michael. The two met when they lived together in their high school dorms, and when Joel eventually went off to study at George Washington University, he left after one semester, only to transfer to Louisiana State University, where Michael was going. He moved in to the same apartment building as Joel, and when Michael's roommate ended up moving out, Joel moved back in. Many have speculated that the relationship between Joel and Michael was more romantic than friendship, but that is truly all that is known about the situation. When Michael was questioned about the case, he stated that he, quote, wasn't surprised that Joel had killed his parents, and also that in the years he had lived with Joel, he had become even more reclusive, spending entire weeks alone in his bedroom, to the point where he didn't see him for months at a time. For what little comfort it is worth, Joel will spend the rest of his natural-born life in prison, exactly where he belongs, and he will forever be known not as the genius he believed himself to be, but as a gigantic idiot who couldn't take care of himself, and, with all of his infinite wisdom, still couldn't manage to conjure up a plan clever enough to avoid the cataclysmic mistake of leaving what is essentially his manifesto at the scene of the crime. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. If you want to support the channel and help me make more content,
Fucking
my
tell
Patreon
someone,
will
right?
also be linked below.
Hi,
With that
James.
said,
How are
have
you?
a great day, and remember to stay safe.
All right. Well, I feel like I want to watch that trial at some point. It's here. We can do that. But for right now, I'm going to go pee. And we'll choose another short video to watch. We have 40 minutes, so we'll find something that'll fit in that time. Everybody make sure that you get something to drink. Grab a snack if you need it. Touch your toes if you're able. We'll be right back. Sorry about my belch. I'm back. This song is funky as hell. I love it. I'm going to stop it now, though. Okay. Let's find a new video to watch. He had some short ones that we haven't watched. So I think it's worth looking at that. Yeah, fuck it.
There is no John.
The Jeepers Creepers crime. You watch all the JCS videos? I have, yes. On stream. All right. Can I just get 3 readies and then we'll... Oh, the title doesn't have to be a link. It can just be true crime. We just need the change feature on both bots done. But here we go. Yeah, I love JCS. We've watched all of the videos on the channel. Okay. Here we go. Y'all.
Genre is formulaic but revered.
I brought up
as
coffee.
the
I'm
slasher
scared it's going to
film
make
genre.
it too hard.
Making a slasher film
Or
is one
too
of the
hot.
easiest things to do. All you need is a
Freudian
likable
slip.
protagonist, usually a woman, going through a difficult period in her life. Maybe a member of their family has recently passed due to an unforeseen tragedy. Maybe she is at a crossroads in her professional career, or maybe she is just in a bad place mentally. Then have said protagonist thrust
1,
into
2,
a
3.
situation
All right, this is
that
the
is
last
usually life or
regular
death,
row.
forcing them to fight for their lives. Usually, in these movies, we see the final girl or boy overcome some obstacle, usually mental. We see them decide that their lives are worth fighting for, and the thing they are scared of, or that is holding
this
them
coffee
back,
is really getting
nothing
me
that
off.
they can't overcome. For as formulaic and overdone
Ceiling
as
fans
these
are the
stories
shit.
are, even
I
the worst
love
ones are
ceiling
entertaining
fans.
to some degree. From campy to realistic, these stories are
Just
generally
having air
ones that are
circulation in a
incredibly
home is so
well-trodden,
important.
almost to the
IMO.
point where nothing is new. However, in today's case, we will be covering a man
I'm very
who created
excited for you,
these types of
James.
movies while
That's
terrorizing
nice.
people in real life. Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, or if this is your first time here, welcome.
Coffee fucking
Today,
slaps.
we are
I
going to be
am
discussing
hard
the
addicted
director
to
of
coffee.
Powder in the Jeepers Creepers trilogy, Victor Salva, a man who continues to find work in Hollywood despite what he has done. This video was highly requested by both our subscribers and our patrons over on Patreon, and because of the subject matter, it's completely demonetized, like the majority of our content. However,
didn't
if
have
you would like to support
ventilation
the
at
channel,
all?
our Patreon
Ugh.
is in the description below. Or if you want to see more of our content,
That's so
feel
scary.
free
What
to
if you had a
subscribe.
carbon
With all that out
monoxide
of the
leak?
way,
Like, you would
let
just
us
be
begin.
donezo. Fuck, I forgot.
Victor
We have to
Salva
pause.
was born March 29th, 1958, to a small
I'll be right back. I just have to run downstairs for a second. I'll be right back. Jeepers, creepers, where'd you get those peepers? Jeepers, creepers, where'd you get those eyes? Sorry, guys. Thank you very much, J-Rod.
Roman Catholic family, whose identities are entirely unknown. His father abandoned his mother shortly after his birth, leaving Victor alone with just his mother. However, they weren't on their own for long, as she would go on to marry another man, whose name, much like the rest of the family, has never been made public. According to Victor, this man was incredibly abusive towards him, stemming from his severe alcoholism. He would describe being attacked ruthlessly at the hands of his stepfather, and how his mother did very little to protect him.
Thank
In a
you,
2006
J-Rod.
interview with the Los Angeles Times, Victor recalled of his abusive home life with his stepfather, saying, "He'd been drinking since he was 14, so he was very volatile. Liquor put him in touch with his anger. He was physical with us. He'd hit me or sometimes slam me, or throw me across the room. It was like living with a landmine. You never knew when it was going to go off." In order to escape his abhorrent home life, Victor sought refuge in the cinema, constantly using whatever money he had on him to spend his days watching every movie that was playing at his local theater. In interviews, Victor would recall how he spent all of his free time going to the movies, watching everything that had come out, and falling in love with the art form. Everything from buying his ticket, getting a small popcorn, and sitting down in the seats made him feel at ease, and it became his home away from home. But out of all the films he saw, his favorite were slasher films.
I'm a mess.
In an interview he would give later on in life, Victor recalled his fascination with creature features, starting when he saw the creature from the Black Lagoon. He stated, "When someone in the movie pointed and screamed, 'Ah, he's so hideous, he's so ugly,' I thought, no, the monster is the most interesting thing about the movie. I wonder what he's thinking and feeling." He later recalled in a separate interview, "Home is supposed to be the safest place in your life. So when you live in a scary environment, like we did, that fear made those monsters feel like your friends and protectors. They were always on your side." By Salva's own admission, he felt a kinship with the creature, as well as other slasher movie icons.
That's probably a red flag.
Often as outsiders, and explained away their negative behaviors and actions, citing their want for love and to fit in. He would later admit that this sense of understanding came from the fact that he too felt like an outsider in society, being that he was a gay man who often tried to hide his sexuality. At the same time, Salva was told by one of his English teachers that he had a real gift and skill for storytelling, and that he should foster that skill. In an interview with Neve Pierce, Salva recalled how the teacher inspired his love for filmmaking, saying, "I had an English teacher who made a deal with me that I could get out of doing all the year's regular work if I would write a short story a week, and on Friday, read it out loud to the class. I don't know why he did that, and I'm sure that a teacher who did that today would probably be fired. But he saw something of a storyteller in me, and when I think of myself as a director, I think of myself as a storyteller." It was the same teacher who, a few months later, suggested that I pick up a camera and shoot one of my short stories. That was really the seed of me becoming a filmmaker. I got to do all the things I love to do. I got to write, I got to act, and I got to direct. The other answer is that I really enjoy telling a good story and seeing if there's a way that I can make others resonate with my own experiences. From then on, Salva was dedicated to becoming a filmmaker in some way, shape, or form. He began to work 2 jobs in his teenage years with the hope that he would be able to save up enough money to afford to create his own feature-length film. He likewise spent whatever leftover money he had
Coming
on
to the
going
end
to
of
the
this
theater.
little
And his
skein
local
here.
paper reported that in 1975, when he was 17 years old, Salva went to see Jaws 55 times, completely obsessed with the thriller. Salva would create over 20 short films and movies while in high school, usually using any creative writing assignments as a springboard for a script.
Ooh,
Most of his
Cat
teachers
Jacket.
were
Thank
kind
you so
enough
much for the
to allow
follow.
him
I
to turn in
appreciate you.
movies instead of written works, but some contested hotly, failing him when he failed to write
Was it
what
the
they had
crochet
assigned.
or the true
Regardless,
crime?
with the help of his friends and some teachers, he had honed in his skills and was creating works that stood up to peer review, and he was determined to become a filmmaker in Hollywood as quickly as possible. After graduating from high school in 1976, Victor made the decision to formally come out to his family. He told them he wanted to live authentically as he was, and hoped that despite their negative and often abusive relationship, they would support him. However, the family immediately turned their backs on him, kicking him out of their home and formally disavowing him. At 18, he was on his own, without a family or a safety net to fall back on. But Salva had prepared for this. and
Sometimes
believed in
I
his
get mad
ability
enough at
to
my
create.
projects to
He
do true
immediately
crime.
took his life savings and got himself a small apartment and began to go to a local junior college where he took courses on film. He continued to write scripts for short films, often shooting them on the weekend with his friends whenever he had time, learning tricks to make his low-budget backyard films look more professional and neat. It was only 10 years later, in 1986, when Salva would get what many would agree was his big break. Salva entered one of his films, Something in the Basement, into a variety of film festivals. According to interviews he would give in 2001, he stated he didn't believe much would come from his admissions, but he was always looking to get a foot in the door whenever he could. It was at the Sony AFI home video competition where he would eventually make a lifelong connection with judge and fellow director Francis Ford Coppola. Coppola saw potential in Salva and believed he had an inherent, immutable storytelling ability that was lacking in the industry. He would go on to say that Salva's ability to translate a story to screen was unmatched, and was something that the film industry absolutely could not be without. The movie went on to win several awards, including taking first place at the Sony AFI video competition, as well as the bronze plaque at the Chicago International Film Festival. After
That's
watching
huge.
the movie, Coppola decided to give Salva the break he had been hoping for, and financed his first feature-length film, Clown House, which Salva both wrote and directed. To anyone outside looking in on Salva's life, he had everything going for him. After years of hardship, he had finally found his first real bit of success. He had overcome an oppressive and abusive home life, and was able to make it in a field that is highly competitive and insular. However, this was just Victor's way of looking at his own life. At no point did any family, including his younger brother, who he
I'd
claimed was
fucking
abusive
believe
as
it,
well,
J-Rod.
or friends materialize to give their side of the story or even confirm his statements. No one came
They got up
forward
to some
talk
shenanigans
about what
in the
Victor
Shore
was
House,
like
hey?
in high school or as a friend, meaning that the only person to talk about Victor's life was Victor. How much of what I just recited is true prior to his meeting Francis Ford Coppola remains to be seen, but from here on out, the truth about Victor Salva would become public. After speaking with Coppola, Salva was given the green light to create his next movie, and he chose Clown House. Clown House was a movie he had written about 3 brothers, all under the age of 18. The youngest brother, Casey, played by a then 12-year-old Nathan Forrest Winters, was characterized as having an extreme fear of clowns, which his older brothers would tease him about before they are all attacked by 3 serial killers who escaped a mental asylum and just so happened to be dressed as clowns. As far as horror movies, it's fairly standard. However, the real horror took place on set. Winters never dreamed about acting or being famous prior to meeting Victor Salva. In fact, he barely remembers a time prior to meeting the adult man, seeing as when they first
J-Rod,
came into
quit it.
contact, he was just around 6 years old. At the time, Victor was working at a daycare center where he was left in charge of children of all ages. One thing that I've emphasized in my videos is the fact that predators often seek employment around children. These positions put them in direct contact with their prey
what a
and also establish them
bummer.
as authority figures in the child's life, meaning that the child would be less likely to come forward with any allegations of abuse. We see this countless times with daycare workers, teachers, and coaches who will systematically groom the children that they are left in charge
Alright,
of over
so
years. Because they often meet
that
these
was
children
22,
when they are extremely
23,
young, they fill their
24,
minds with
25.
lies,
So
like what
now
they
we're
are
on to
doing to them
26.
isn't wrong, that touching them the way they do is normal, and that their parents already know about the abuse, so telling them doesn't matter. Usually, these adults will try to befriend the parents as well, gaining their trust and grooming them to believe that they just really like their child. This then leads to them offering to babysit for free or take care of the child should the parents want to go away for a vacation or a long weekend. And similar to how the child is groomed to think that nothing is wrong, the parents are also groomed. Many times, in the cases of single parents, the predator will feign sexual and romantic interest in the parent. That way they can get unmitigated access to the child. Other times, they will use any financial hardship the family is going through against them, saying they can fulfill their child's wants to go to Disney World or on little adventures where the parent cannot. Victor working at a daycare is not shocking in the least, as he likely took that job to satiate his lust for the underaged. While working at the daycare, Victor
his
talked to one
lust
of
for the
Rebecca Winter's
underaged.
family friends
Ugh.
about a movie he was making in his backyard. He stated that he had very little budget to work with and needed someone to help him with the props. Given that his mother is an incredibly artistic person and had a history on film sets, the friend gave her phone number to Victor. From then on, Victor and Rebecca worked together on his films, and Nathan began to see Victor often. Nathan would go on to describe the grooming process as slow, but steady. Victor would gain his trust. In an interview he would do in 2017 with a creator named Blast Zone Mike, Nathan would recall that Victor spent the better part of a year grooming me and my parents, developing the trust. It was very calculated and a long process, as it is with most pedophiles. The abuse started when he was 9, and he was already a trusted family friend. According to Nathan, he felt as
I
if
missed one of
he
the
could
double
come to Victor
crochets
with
in
anything,
here.
and if he tripped and fell and needed to be comforted, he would run to Victor instead of his parents. His parents likewise felt the same. He was just a friendly guy who made low-budget movies, and it was unthinkable that he could be using them to get to their child. Victor idolized the movie-making process to Nathan, and Nathan, seeing both his mother and his mentor in positions on their own backyard movie sets, was determined to join them as an actor. Victor played coy with Nathan, grooming him further. He told Nathan that he wasn't really sure he was up to acting in a major movie, and that he would have to prove that he was capable in an audition. He spent time telling Nathan about all the boys who would come out to the audition for the roles he had, even before Francis Ford Coppola backed him and emphasized what a big deal it would be for him to put Nathan into his movies. But Nathan was insistent and begged him for
Poor
an audition
kid,
for the
man.
movie Something in the Basement. The following is taken from an interview Nathan did with The Millennial Report. The audio is doubled for some reason, so forgive the poor quality.
And tell me, Nathan, who's Victor Salva at this point in your life to you? And who is he to Hollywood?
I have
in
no
this very
idea,
moment?
J-Rod. I haven't heard anything.
He was unknown in Hollywood at that point. And to me, he was just like one of my parents' friends, more of an acquaintance, I guess, because, you know, he started the grooming process fairly early on, from what I remember. And then by grooming, I mean basically developing the trust of my parents and my trust and adoration. And, you know, they take their time. Someone like Victor, a pedophile like Victor, they're very patient, very manipulative, and they take their time. So it was within the first year that the abuse started, but really he was unknown in Hollywood, and he was just a friend of the family.
Sorry, give me a second,
Then
y'all.
Clown House happens. Take us through your experience working on the horror film Clown House and how your relationship grew with Victor Salva.
Again, so the grooming process, within the first year, he had started abusing me. And I think when I was about 9 or 10, he had started production on another backyard movie called Something in the Basement. And he had maybe 19 or 20 boys my age audition for the lead role. And I begged him because I was at his house. I mean, by this time, you know, the abuse had been going on. If I was 9, it had been going on for probably 2.5 years, maybe.
Did you used to do your dishes in the bathtub, bud?
He had like the full trust of my parents, where, you know, he would take me for full weekends and take me to amusement parks and things like that, and you know, always under the guise of like giving my parents a break because I had an older brother, it's 5 years younger, and so their hands were pretty full. And so Something in the Basement, again, you know, this is when I'm like 9 or 10. I begged him.
Well, I'm stoked that you have a better place to call home now. That's awesome.
You're not good, and and so I ended up talking to him, and when I auditioned, he was like, okay,
yeah, you're eternal, aren't you?
Like, you have a part. And so I was stoked. I was, you know, ecstatic. Telling all the kids at school I was going to star in this movie. And then that went and won. That was entered into the Sony Film Festival, I believe it was, in San Francisco. And Coppola was on the panel of judges. and it won first place. And then afterwards, Coco approached Victor and said, I like your style, whatever, and I'll give you some money if you want to make another film. Do you have another film, another script to film? And he went home and he wrote Clown House with me specifically in the starring role, as well as the middle brother, Brian McHugh, because he co-starred in Something in the Basement with me. So that film was written with me and Brian in the two main roles. And that's where Clown House came to be, was, Coppola's production, or I guess Commercial Pictures, which is his production company.
And Clown House really is, to this day, quite a cult hit, and something that a lot of people still reference as one of those, gritty, horrifying films that really knocks down, I suppose at the time, the standards of horror films. It allowed for a much more grittier.
Man, that sucks when you're just trying to fucking rep a promising artist and your whole career gets fucking smeared over it.
Which makes the end result even more disgusting. The following is an excerpt from a 2012 Vice article titled "Victor Salva Loves Terrorizing Semi-Naked Youths." Salva has said that the idea of making a horror movie like Clown House had been on his mind for some time, and when you watch it, you can see why. The plot's victims are three prepubescent brothers, led by debutante Sam Rockwell, who spend their time running hysterically around their enormous suburban house, getting terrorized by sadistic escaped lunatics dressed as circus clowns. The leader is called Chizo. As a concept, it's pretty basic, though the nightmare is enlivened by a constant thrumming undercurrent of high school homoeroticism, which manifests itself in lingering crotch shots and constant close-ups of half-naked teens. It's basically as terrifying as you'd expect a film about murderous, child-killing clowns directed by a pedophile to be. On the set of Clown House, when the camera wasn't directly on Nathan, Salva would have Nathan sit on his lap in the director's chair. The act alone seemed innocuous once, but it became so frequent that other members of the cast and crew began to be concerned. Different members of the crew approached Nathan's mom, advising her of Salva's seemingly inappropriate behavior, and at first, she shrugged it off. She maintained that Salva had known Nathan since he was 6. They had gone on trips together and had a normal family relationship. However, the more people approached her, she began to realize how out of the ordinary their behavior really was. She began to ask Nathan about it when they were alone, and Nathan, not knowing anything was actually amiss in his relationship with Victor because of his intense 6-year grooming, would say that everything was fine. Her suspicions would only mount when, after Victor realized that she was questioning Nathan, he would ban her from the set, telling her that Nathan couldn't work while she was there. He then began to keep Nathan after work, forcing him to stay behind for extra rehearsal time, where he would assault Nathan in his trailer and record it for his own private stash of sexual abuse images of children. As time went on, Nathan began to realize that what he was doing with Victor wasn't normal. According to an interview he would do with the now-defunct website, Nathan would state that when he went to school and heard about other kids' romantic relationships, he realized that Salva had abused him. His mom continued to question Nathan, asking him if everything between Salva and him was normal. Shortly after the filming of Clown House ended, he told her the truth. Immediately, Rebecca took Nathan to the police and filed a report
Why do they always have
Salva.
a stash?
His home was
well,
then
it's not
raided,
like they can
and
go
within
on
it,
the
they
internet
found
and
videos
search
of
for
him
it,
abusing
hey?
Nathan, as well as commercially bought child sex abuse videos. Nathan wasn't a one-off case. Victor clearly was sexually attracted to children. After being arrested and charged with 11 counts involving the sexual abuse he had put Nathan through, he made a deal with the prosecution and pled guilty to 5 counts, including lewd and lascivious conduct, oral sex with a person under 14, and procuring a child for pornography. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison, but got out after just 15 months. Salva would describe his prison sentence as being horrific, as if he was the true victim in the situation, not the child he abused for years on end. According to his own testimony, he was, quote, beaten beyond recognition in prison because everyone had been made aware of his crimes and thought he was disgusting. He went on to say, I was never more scared or closer to death than when I was in prison. I received no therapy there. prisons are not places for rehabilitation or learning to understand yourself or your actions. They're monster factories.
This MF for
to those who are
spitting.
closest to the case, that is not an accurate retelling of what occurred. Luckily for him, his buddy Francis Ford Coppola is still on his side. Francis, it seemed, didn't mind that Victor had sexually abused a child, and in fact, felt the child was more at fault for reporting it.
Now, tell me something.
Oh boy.
Take us through the steps of how Victor Salva was held accountable for molesting you as a child.
Let's see. It was when he was arrested, it was a sting operation. First of all, and so after we finished up principal photography for Clown
Fudge
House,
Dugans.
the cameras we used were literally the ones that George Lucas used for American Graffiti.
Wow.
And so they were
Plot
really
twist,
old
yeah.
outdated cameras, and they were extremely loud. So every bit of sound on that film had to be dubbed over, and so it was basically a month of shooting.
Yeah, welcome, Cat Jacket.
And it was right in between.
Everybody make sure that Cat Jacket feels welcome in our community.
The overdubs that the police did the sting operation and caught him just a couple miles away from his house, and then, I mean, they found, you know, like pretty much a kiddie porn den, just videotapes upon videotapes and photo albums full of like boys modeling underwear for, you know, Macy's or Sears, plus pictures of countless little boys, and all sorts of just really, really disgusting stuff was found, and Victor admitted to all of it. He admitted to all of it until there was an attorney involved, and Coppola is where the attorney came in. Like that's where the money came from for the attorney, for Victor's attorney was. So Coppola gets him this really, you know, expensive lawyer, and
wait, 23, 24, 25,
and then it turns
26,
into where,
27.
you know, because the police already had on file, on record, him admitting to all these things, because he was arrested on 11
Wait, no,
counts
that's
of
26,
molestation,
right?
including,
22,
oral sodomy
23, 24, 25, 26, 27.
You know, oral copulation on a child under
Hello?
14, videotaping these things, like, I mean, and then, you know, several charges that had to do with the production of Clown House and being abused
22,
during that production.
23, 24, 25, 26.
So
okay, we're
he,
fine.
of
Everything's
course,
fine.
retracts everything,
Guys,
and the lawyers
everything's
get him
great.
to shut his mouth and, you know, stop making their jobs harder. And eventually what happened was, at some point Coppola filed a
Okay.
and my lawyer called my parents one day and said, you know, the appointment we had with Victor's attorneys it's been rescheduled. It's been pushed till tomorrow. So you guys don't need to come in today. And so, we stayed home, and my
I should
attorney actually
probably
went down
put some
and
markers
met with
down.
Victor's lawyers and signed wrote up a plea bargain and had it signed. And the plea bargain dropped the 6 most severe charges, the ones that had to do with the production of Clown House and the abuse, and he was convicted on 5, the 5 least severe charges, or signed a plea bargain at that, and was sentenced 3 years. And he was in jail for a short time when he was first arrested, but after that, he didn't go to prison. He never saw another jail cell. He went to a treatment facility in Napa.
Oh,
and
what a
did
retreat!
15
How
months.
lovely.
Right. Yeah, he did 15 months.
So I'm
And
sorry.
basically had movie deals waiting for him. It was like, warm reception when he got out of his treatment, and was right back to work, shortly thereafter.
So Francis Ford Coppola stepped in to not only help him, but then he sued you.
Yes.
Wild.
What a slime bag! Are you kidding me?
Saying what we're all thinking.
Notable, legendary Hollywood director
made a beanie
stepped in
once?
to not only throw
That's fun.
sand
Do you
in
have
your
pictures
face,
that you want to share?
but to help someone that had been arrested on unspeakable charges.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In fact, believable.
Once the film was, because I still had to go and do all the overdubs. So after he was arrested, so I still had a month's worth of work at Coppola's house every single day for 8 or 9 hours.
Kika.
Every day for a month.
I don't know if you guys can hear him.
which time I
He's
was, like,
singing the
blacked
song
out,
of his
told, like,
people.
look, I need
He's
to
such a
do
little
damage,
tomcat. He
you know, like,
totally
all sorts
does
of
that
stuff.
shit.
And
And I don't know why.
you know,
Fiverr
yeah, it
Hopper,
was
thank you so much.
incredible.
That's so nice.
So tell me,
Even after Victor was arrested and admitted to his crimes, Coppola stayed by the pedophile, supporting his friend, shouldering the legal
no, we're
fees, and getting Victor a
1,
plea deal
2,
that was
3,
virtually
4,
a slap on the
5,
wrist.
6, 7,
According to
8.
Victor, before he went to prison, Coppola spoke to him on the phone and told him that prison would,
That shouldn't
quote,
be
make him a
real.
better artist, which I guess in his mind makes pedophilia okay. When Salva was arrested, there was still work for him to do on
Yes,
the
it
film,
should. We're
seeing
good.
as the
Everything's
cameras
fine.
they've used were
I
provided
always
by
think that I
George
fuck up when
Lucas
I didn't
and were
fuck up.
incredibly noisy. Nathan had to come to Coppola's studio every day to overdub the dialogue from the movie, and he was repeatedly told by the filmmaker that he would never work in Hollywood again, that his career was over, and that he had made a mistake, going to the police. But that wasn't all. Coppola then
Take a
tried to
shit in
sue
their
Winters
litter tray while
for
making
$5
eye contact and
million,
meowing?
citing
Okay.
a breach of contract.
I've taken
Though
that
I've
note.
tried to find out
Thank
more
you.
information about this lawsuit, it seems there is very little information publicly available as to the exact details.
I
which
have to
is
admit,
notable,
though,
given
I
that
kind of like
there
it.
was
I
a
think
clause
it's
in the
really
contract
cute. It
that a
just, I
minor
hate
could
it
not
when it
go to
comes
the
at
police if they were
inopportune times,
sexually
but
abused by the
he's just
director
a
of the
kitty. He
film.
doesn't know
That
when
would
an
imply
inopportune time is.
Coppola was aware of the sexual
He's just a little
abuse
kitty boy
occurring
out there
and
doing his
knowingly
best and
put him
singing
in
his
charge
songs.
of a set with minors. Regardless of the details, it seemed that Coppola at least knew that the minor actors on the set had a great chance of being abused, and was more upset that it had been made public. The Winters family would later
What?
settle the lawsuit, having to pay a little over
fucking
$100,000.
scumbag, dude.
After a little over a year in prison, Salva would be released, and he refused to let his being a pedophile get in the way of his career. According to his own testimony, he would work as a telemarketer during the week and pose as a delivery boy on the weekend, delivering his own scripts to different studio directors with the hopes that it would end up in the right hands. However, other people have claimed that he was given movie deals immediately after exiting prison, citing that Francis put in a good word for him with various studio heads. After being released in 1992, it would be 3 years before he made another movie, which was the direct-to-video movie Nature of the Beast. But shortly after that, that same year, he made the Disney movie Powder. For Nathan,
I
seeing
loved
Victor
that
be able
movie.
to continue to work in the movie industry, specifically for him to continue to be put in a position of power over children on a movie set, was terrifying. At the premiere, he protested, showing proof that Victor was a pedophile and had abused his power on sets previously. But it did very little to hurt the box office numbers for the movie, and Disney executives maintained that they simply had no idea that their director had
That's
gone to
wild.
prison prior to hiring him. There was a small amount of
Wild.
controversy about his role in making the film, but all in all, the protest did little to spread awareness. Although Victor would go on to lambast the efforts to make people aware of his criminal actions, stating that Nathan and the people who refused to, quote, let it go, made it impossible for him to enjoy his career highs. He would continue to work in Hollywood, and in 2001 came out with the horror movie Jeepers Creepers. The movie would go on to set a record for the largest Labor Day box office and cement itself as a slasher film staple. But while promoting the movie once more, Victor was confronted about being a pedophile. In an interview he did with Neil Young's Film Lounge, when asked about what they only referred to as the controversy, Victor said, "This has followed me around ever since it happened. But once people meet me, the phantoms go away, and they realize I made a stupid mistake years ago." Francis knew I made a mistake, but he also knew who I was and what I was capable of doing. My past is going to follow me around for as long as people want to talk about it. Jeepers Creepers is a high-profile movie, but I think there will be less controversy this time because it isn't Disney who made it. It did hamper us a bit when we had some difficulty with the schools in Florida when we were shooting
Pale
the movie. But really,
Voyager! Everybody go
everybody's
follow
heard
Pale
the story
Voyager
now,
for
and I'm not
fun
sure how much
gameplay
juice there is
streams.
left in it. Then again, there's always going to
Pale
be
Voyager does a
people who
lot
wonder,
of,
how can anyone make that big a mistake? It's like Einstein
narrative
said,
driven
going back to
and
Powder. People make big
like
mistakes
RPG
and they
games
make
and
little
stuff.
mistakes, and all we can do
How
is
are
learn from
you?
them. I'll
Good to
never
see
let it
you.
stop my career as a filmmaker. Francis said he knew how hard it was for me to get through the hard times, but he told me to try and look for the positives, and that it might even make me a better artist because I'd come through the tough parts. I was too upset to listen to him at the time, but I know what he means. I have learned a lot of lessons. It derailed me from my ambition to be Spielberg, but it made me realize I wanted to know what kind of films Victor Salva was going to make. After everything that's happened, I'm still going to make movies.
You're so
to make
wonderful.
Victor Salva movies. And unfortunately, he was right. Victor has continued to work as a filmmaker in Hollywood, with his latest addition to his roster being Jeepers Creepers 3, which came out in 2017. The movie likewise contains multiple jokes about pedophilia, written by Salva.
Really?
While making a joke in and of itself usually isn't cause for concern, the fact that Salva wrote two jokes sexualizing children in movies he has continued to make after being charged with sexually abusing children is a clear indicator that something is extremely wrong here.
Gotta agree with
I've also
Dreading
found
Man
that Victor
here.
publicly stated that he has more than made up for his crimes, given his time in prison and the fact that he does a lot of community service. What community service, you might ask? He works with juvenile sex offenders and spends a good amount of time with minors.
Wow,
According to the
wow,
group's
wow,
leader,
wow.
Dolores Combs, Salva has been an inspiration for the kids. Most importantly, he's living proof that you can change your life and be a functioning member of society. As for Nathan Forrest Winters, he
So
was
what is it?
blacklisted
Did you
from
receive
Hollywood, but that did
rehabilitation or
little to stop
not,
him from advocating
motherfucker?
for children working with Salva and talking about how he was abused and how Hollywood protected his abuser. If you liked this video, please consider hitting the like button.
What?
If you want to see more videos from my channel, subscribe down below. If you want to see videos early,
I
consider
hope he
joining
was
my Patreon.
rehabilitated.
If there is
That's,
a case you
I
would
guess,
like to
all
see
I
me
can say.
cover,
I think
leave
that
a
it's really
comment down
fucked up
below or email
that
me
Francis
at
Coppola
dreading.official@gmail.com.
kept
I will see you
his-
in the next video. Stay safe.
his support strong. I am absolutely fucking appalled that that guy gets to work with kids. And more than that, I am appalled that he made a joke out of it for an audience of millions of people. That's so fucked. That's so fucked. So we just got a raid, so I feel like we can do a short video. Normally I would be ending right now, but because we got a raid, it feels like it would be shitty of us to just go, like we weren't even saying goodbye or anything yet. So let's find a short video. None of these are short. The Nutty Putty Caves is fucking creepy. That chapter has some short ones. I wish you could sort by length. That would be really nice. I don't understand why YouTube doesn't do that. Like, you go to YouTube when you have a few minutes to kill, right? You know? This one's pretty short. This one's... Let's do this one. So gracious. Sort by girth. Aw, geez Louise. Okay, can I get 3 readies in chat, please? Sort by load. You can't even filter out videos you've already seen? Yeah, that is wild. Hi, Pondwater. All right, here we go. Jennifer Faith, never heard of her. Let's figure it out.
Hey, you, and welcome.
Hi,
My name is Mike,
yourself.
and in this old video, we got one of those good ones. You know what I mean? Like a real what were they thinking head scratcher. You gotta love it. It's set in Texas because of course it is. It's been a while, and a woman named Faith had a lot of it in her ridiculous plan. She shouldn't have. You'll see when I show you. Do you guys remember the story? I did it a while back. It was of Janelle Potter. She would, write emails posing as someone else.
So hot in here. I might need to pull my hair back.
So
actually, I think I'm just gonna do that really quick. Everybody hang tight for a second. Or I'm gonna keep it going.
It's Big D. We're
Jeez
off to
Louise,
it.
I have a
Don't
sweat stash
loosen the
going.
belt. Dallas. Cowboys, oil, rodeos, the good stuff. Yeah, that about covers Texas, Dallas.
I don't know why
But
it
in
got
particular,
hotter
we are
in
off
here
to a place
instead
called
of cooler.
Oak Cliff.
Like it
Are you
normally
familiar?
does. Fuck.
You're gonna be. Oak Cliff is located southwest of downtown Dallas. It's one of the older parts of the city. It's home to a little less than 30,000 folk, and it's really a hodgepodge of different types of people.
Gotta pull out my short hairs so they don't get
It's
damaged.
not so much the neighborhood that's important, more so the people living in it. Yeah, make a house a home. Someone said.
Yeah, he's a real cutie, hey?
But you gotta have a little faith. Oak Cliff did. South Waverly Drive, a leafy little suburb, was home to the Faith family. James, Jennifer, and their daughter Amber, living at 926. James Faith Jr.
That's
was
really
a native
nice to get that off of my
Wisconsin. Jennifer a Texan herself. James was born in 1971, Madison, and went on to study at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, knuckling down to computer science. He would go on to have a full-on career in software engineering, and in 2020 was working as the director of Shop and Buy and Manage Reservations Products. That in American Airlines. His first love included, first and foremost, the Packers, obviously, followed by traveling, wine, his friends, and his beloved wife and daughter. In October 2020, James was 49 years old. His wife, Jennifer Lynn Faith, the very same. As for what she did for a living, honestly, I'm not too sure. I couldn't really find out. Maybe she was a homemaker. If she was, fair play to her. Let's move on. Inciting incident time. The date, the 9th of October 2020. So almost a year to the day as I'm posting this old video.
What's
That
wrong with
morning was
I
a
love
Friday.
chest hair.
At 7:35 a.m., James and
chest hair
Jennifer went
is
out for a neighborhood stroll, walking
very
the puffer,
sexy.
something they would do fairly regularly. But this wasn't just any, regular morning. This was the morning after James and Jennifer just celebrated their 15th year wedding anniversary. Good on them. And also, as you probably guessed, because I'm yapping on about it, this morning wouldn't just be like any other. The police. Ring ring.
But do you have a treasure trail?
When
'Cause
Dallas
that's
police
the-
and rescue personnel
that's
arrived
the good
at
shit
South
right
Waverly
there.
Place, they discovered James Faith lying on the sidewalk. And James had been shot to death. His wife Jennifer and dog beside, just losing it. James and Jennifer had been walking their dog Maggie when
The butt hair is
a
very
masked
sad.
suspect approached them from behind. Jennifer would say she heard footsteps of somebody running up behind them.
You'd
She
love
turned around,
me.
And when she did, she saw a guy wearing a mask pointing a handgun at her husband, James. And then this guy opened fire on James 7 times. James was shot 3 times in the head, 3 times in the chest,
The trail became more of a
and
field.
once
That's
in the
hot.
groin.
That's
This
very
guy,
hot.
This
I love that
suspect then
shit.
attacked her, duct taped her hands, began slapping her about the place, tried to steal some of her jewelry, and obviously Jennifer was roaring her head off the entire time, screaming for help. And so this guy just did a legger. The suspect fled in a black Nissan truck and left the scene immediately. There were a few witnesses in the area, and one managed to snap a pic. An older model vehicle with an identifying white T, it's a Texas Rangers logo, on the rear windshield. The license plate, however, even though the car ended up being caught on multiple security cams, they couldn't make it out. The suspect himself was wearing a mask, so it was hard to say much other than and he was of medium build, wearing a hooded jacket and a blue face mask. The same kind of face mask everybody was wearing in October 2020. It was in blue. He had dark eyes. That was as much as Jennifer could say. Okay, so this doesn't seem like any old shooting. This guy wanted James dead. Like, definitely dead. And then the one shot to the dick. Like, it's unnecessary. That's gotta be a message, right? Tragic.
Absolutely.
Stuff, though,
yeah, right,
Jennifer,
Kudo, you're not wrong. That's just
your
typically
regular
very
morning
true.
walk. The Fates had a Ring camera, back door of their home, that would capture the suspect in the back garden of the house next door, which was empty.
Forearms
This
are
was
also
at
a
2:30
personal love
the
of
night
mine.
Before, so obviously not
Man,
a
when
random
when a dude
robbery
is
gone
wearing
wrong
like
or
a
something like
3/4
that.
sleeve or long sleeves that are rolled up,
Dallas police need more help
fuck,
tracking down the
forget
killer.
about
He
it.
shot an American Airlines executive while he and his wife were out walking their dog.
The shooting
I'm just
happened in the
done
morning
for.
hours in North Oak Cliff. James Faith was ambushed, shot, and killed. I'm going to show you a black Nissan Titan, the only obvious clue homicide detectives have to go on. That's a picture of it.
A male suspect approached them, shot Mr. Faith. After he shot Mr. Faith, he then turned and attacked and assaulted Mrs. Faith while attempting to take property.
Do you think, sir, that this was a random robbery or something more sinister?
Right now, we know that the suspect did attempt to take property, but we're not going to limit limit the motives behind this investigation.
Jamie was very kind, very caring. He would do anything for anybody.
Jennifer Faith has plenty of pictures and memories of her husband, James. Still, it's not the same as having him here.
I heard running behind me, and I turned around, and all of a sudden, somebody just started shooting at him, and just kept shooting and shooting and shooting.
A reward of $25,000 would be offered by Crime Stoppers for any information. Jennifer would
Fucking
appeal to the
hello.
public on TV.
My yarn is throwing
You know
a hissy
something?
fit.
Say something.
Oh my God. If you know what happened, I need that for closure. I need to make some sense out of this.
This
It's
poor
been
woman.
Horrible. Devastating. I teeter between completely heartbroken and completely devastated every day. It's been awful.
Faith still has so many questions.
It seems like a robbery, but we're just not sure. It seems like a lot of gunshots just to try to take property from somebody.
Ah, Jennifer. So when the investigation began, the police didn't have much to go on other than a black truck, and with no license plate.
Wait, it was her, wasn't
tracking
it?
Down would be hard. So crossing the T's, dotting the eyeballs, as they ramped up the investigation into who murdered James Faith, they asked Jennifer for her phone so they could, analyze it, clear her. She said yes, the gobshite. Analyzing Jennifer's phone, it turned out that not all was going swimmingly in the Faith household.
She acted
Jennifer
that really
was
well.
having
That's
an
wild.
affair, an emotional affair, and it had been going on for some time. Jennifer wasn't
Shocking.
saying a whole lot about it, but her phone and her text messages to her friend really, it'll tell us all we need to know. The other party was a guy named Darren Ruben Lopez, 48 years old, and he lived in Tennessee. He and Jennifer had dated in high school and then college. They even had plans to marry, but they ended up splitting as Darren, he was in the military and he was deployed overseas. He ended up in South Korea. He would be a lifelong military man. Soon after they broke up, Jennifer met James Faith and yada yada yada. Then it turned out this Darren fellow, he retired. He retired from the military and they found each other once again. James did find out about this emotional affair that was going on and he was devastated. She would be in contact with Darren, texting all day, every day. And apparently, he had a 5-year plan for them to be together. Let me just say, before I go any further, you probably have an idea of what's gonna happen. Trust me, it gets crazier.
Okay. I trust you, Mike. I trust you.
So you probably guessed it. The police learned that Darren drove a black Nissan truck matching the one seen in CCTV. As he was in Tennessee, this began a federal investigation. The ATF joined the Dallas Police Department, and Darren's cell phone was analyzed.
I tentatively
In just
trust.
one 12-day period, from the end of November 2020 to the start of December, Darren and Jennifer messaged each other almost 6,000 times.
Jeez.
4 days before the murder on the 5th of October, in that one day,
Come on, please.
700 times. Yeah. How'd you even find the time for that shit? Here are some messages they sent each other. Enjoy.
Okay.
But mysteriously, on the day of the shooting for a 28-hour period, no contact. Because Darren's phone was turned off. But it wasn't turned off, not entirely, for the 650-mile trip from Dallas to Cumberland Furnace, Tennessee, when Darren was driving home after the shooting.
Miss you so
His credit card was also used along that route to buy gas, Red Bull, and some food. Darren likely left Tennessee on the 8th of October, driving through the night, ending up in the back garden of the next door house at 2:20
I just
a.m.
realized why it got hotter.
He then waited for them to go for their morning walk.
Doy.
He was back in Tennessee after 5 p.m., 10 hours after shooting James. And so, armed with the likely suspect, aerial surveillance was conducted of Darren's home, and the vehicle was seen with the distinctive white T. As they surveilled him, the white T would later be removed, with Jennifer sending a link to an article talking about that particular distinctive white T.
This truck, a black Nissan Titan, extended cab with a Texas Ranger sticker on the back window.
My hope is that someday perhaps the person will realize the gravity of what they've done and what they've taken from myself and my daughter. And he's just the
Myself?
backbone
Go
of our
fuck
family.
yourself.
And asking him to remove it.
All right.
And so, on the 11th of January
Fucking losers.
2021, Darren Lopez was arrested.
Just fucking grow up and divorce.
Murder weapon
Just
found
grow,
in his car,
be an adult.
along with a credit card in Jennifer's name. See, Darren, he had some money troubles. He was 120 days behind his mortgage payments. Jennifer, not so much. James, he had a life insurance policy. Of course he did. Of $600,000, which Jennifer was trying to, get her little paws at. She was telling Darren all about it. Read that. So that's a common one, right? Try this on for size. The day after the shooting, the 10th of October, a GoFundMe was set up by her friend, raising money, for Jennifer and her daughter through this difficult time. $60,000 were raised, which Jennifer, as the beneficiary, she withdrew the entire amount. Refunds are now being given, I hope.
Police in Tennessee arrested 48-year-old Darren Lopez, this man here, on Monday, and he's now being charged with murder of a Texas man.
I just hope that at some point, maybe this person can recognize the gravity of what they've done.
Jennifer Faith
and feel some sort of guilt enough to come forward.
sobbed in an interview with us last month.
I'm not supposed to be widowed at 48,
She spoke to us as a widow, begging for her husband's killer to turn themselves in.
disgusted.
But after an arrest in Tennessee, his murder investigation is taking an unexpected turn.
So with all this, Darren was in custody, and over a month later, Jennifer was arrested on the 24th of February 2021, and she was charged with obstruction of justice. She was helping cover up her husband's murder, helping cover the perpetrator. She pleaded not guilty. And so, that was the end of the story for till now, really, because it gets worse. I was following the story back in February 2021 when it was all coming out, right? And as I said, it went quiet until September 2021 when Jennifer's charges were upgraded. She leveled up to murder for hire. See, before, when you could say, well, you know, these two people, they just wanted to be together, and it was Darren's idea, you know, to get rid of the husband so they could be together, you know, the long lost lovers, or whatever. Cheesy, but whatever. Well, wrong on that end, and you might even end up, at the very end of this, feeling a tad, maybe even a smidge, little sorry for Darren, maybe. In April 2020, right, half a year before the shooting, Jennifer Faith created a fake Gmail account. She created it in her husband's name, James Faith. Posing as her husband, she emailed Darren loads of times over the next few months, saying how he was physically and sexually abusing Jennifer, torturing her.
What?
This was all fake, of course. There was never any evidence of any abuse in the house.
What?
I'm telling you, stay away from my family. I enjoy knowing you can't do a fucking thing about it. She was pretending to be her husband, taunting her boyfriend.
What?
She then created another fake
scumbag
Gmail account, this time posing as a friend of hers, right, who I'll just call Ms. X. And this was essentially to back up the other email account with more proof. Jamie slapped Jen. Then he sent the pic of him choking her. I'm asking if you are willing to get involved and help Jen get out of this situation.
Oh shit, hi
Jamie
Oliver.
is abusing Jen today.
Don't mind if
Any
I do.
ideas how we can help her?
Yeah, this shit is wild.
Darren would then reply, I know I won't feel better about her situation until she's out of the house away from him. Or she lets me put a bullet in Jamie's head. Ms. X, I am also very concerned. And if it were up to me, I would tell you to go for it with your idea. Lol, I'll give you an alibi. I talked to Jen. He's burning her, among other things. You can see how she was just, hey, someone should really kill my husband. What do you think? Ex-military man.
How
and
are
Jennifer
you? I love
would
you
attach
so much.
images
It's good to
to
see
these
you.
emails.
Everybody say hi to
Images, fake
Gochira.
images of like bruises and other injuries. So Darren, then hearing all about how horrible James was to his long lost lover, the one that got away, he drove from Tennessee to Texas and murdered James.
I've made a huge mistake.
Of course, allegedly.
Is Jennifer innocent?
Yes, she's innocent.
Earlier this year, I spoke with Jennifer's defense attorney, Toby Shook, after her arrest for obstruction
I
of
wish
justice.
my last name was Shook.
Jennifer was devastated.
What a
by
great
the murder of
name.
her husband. She has cooperated with the police for the past 3 months, met with them on numerous occasions, and answered all their questions.
After her murder for hire charge, Shook had no comment.
He would give you the shirt off his back.
10 months after our interview, Jennifer
Only
remains in
his
jail.
name is Booty.
And if convicted,
I'm like,
she may
okay.
face the death penalty.
I'm not supposed to be widowed at 48.
Should I text you after stream?
Today,
We're ending
Jennifer
soon.
and Darren are in jail. It's way too early to say when they will go to trial, but I'm sure more will come out. It's a pretty fascinating case. They've both pleaded not guilty to the charges, and let's see if that will change. There may be a part 2 to this. We'll see what happens in... this one's bizarre. Truly batshit.
It is wild. This one's wild. I cannot
She's in a jail
believe that she
cell
catfished
right now.
her
Will
lover.
be for some time with not a whole lot to
Just
muck
what a
around
shitty
with other
lady.
than stare at some walls, a shitload of bars, and think about what exactly landed her where she is this very moment. And the ridiculous plan it was, allegedly. Thank you so much for watching.
glad
I really
because,
appreciate you taking the time to be here with this guy. Here, go on. I'll
put
see you
that
as always
ponytail
real
in way
soon
too
in the
tight.
next little video. Until then, please take care of yourselves. I love you. Mike out.
All right. Boys, girls, and everyone else. That's gonna do it. This lady looks like my mom, but fat. Okay. We are gonna call it here. I'm gonna find somebody to raid. I would love it if you guys would tell me a lie. Tell me a lie in chat so that we have a big fat girthy raid. Just get nice and active in chat. Even if you don't want to tell me a lie, just say a number or a character or, you know, anything. Punctuation. What's your favorite punctuation mark? I don't mind. Just say something in chat so that you become a part of the raid. If you please. I would appreciate it. We're trying to make friends in the crafting community. So, all right. Thanks for hanging out. I'm going to run an ad and find somebody to raid. Oh, thank you, patrons. Thank you, patrons. Fuck me. Thank you to Theo, J-Rod, Dragon Rana, Big Wolf Paws, Quinn Kenobi, Laura Cody, and Katie Bailey. You're the best. You're the best. And I love you. Okay. Now we're going to go. Follow me on Twitter and stuff if you want. Bye.